started at 9:11 a.m. on November 21st, 2024. We'll call our meeting to order. Madam Clerk, could you read the roll?
Councilmember Corr. Councilmember McKay Rodriguez.
Present.
Councilmember Villagran.
Here.
Councilmember Rocha Garcia.
Here.
Councilmember Castillo.
Here.
Councilmember Capello Haverda. Councilmember Alderete Gavito.
Here.
Councilmember Pelaez. Councilmember Courage.
Present.
Councilmember White. Here. Mayor Nierenberg. Here. Mayor, we have quorum.
Welcome, everyone, to our City Council A session. We've got a busy day today, so appreciate your patience and your attention. I'm going to turn the floor now to Councilmember Castillo to welcome our invocator.
Thank you, Mayor, and good morning, everyone. This morning we have Dr. Peter Lawson with us from the Mount Ararat Baptist Church in District 5. Pastor Lawson is an authentic encourager who inspires and motivates others with the message of hope. As a teacher, his victorious and powerful message has transformed the lives of many. He believes that living the life of purpose, despite the past transitions, can lead to victory. Peter Lawson's message facilitates the transformation of the brokenhearted and brings freedom to the captive, walking in pure victory. It's a process. Is a reminder of God's unwavering love as a pastor and chaplain. Peter Lawson walks in pure victory as he strives to empower others, and he provided this book of his, so we want to encourage folks to check that out as well. And with that, I hand that over to you, Pastor Lawson.
Good morning. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come to you today with humble hearts, seeking your divine guidance, wisdom for our city of San Antonio and its leaders. As the City Council gathers today for its meeting, we ask for your presence to fill these chambers. Lord, we pray for each council member by name. Grant them the clarity of mind and purity of intentions. Bestow upon them the wisdom to make decisions that will benefit all citizens. Fill their hearts with compassion for the diverse needs of our community. We ask for your blessings on the city. May the city of San Antonio continue to grow in prosperity and unity. Help us to address challenges with courage and innovation. Guide us in the preserving of our rich heritage while embracing new and positive changes. Father, we pray for the issues that will be discussed today. May solutions be found that are honorable with your principles and justice and mercy for all. Help our leaders today to work together in harmony, setting aside personal agendas. Let each outcome of this meeting bring about positive change for our community. We ask you to, in the precious name of Jesus, to fill these chambers and your love for the city of San Antonio. In Jesus' precious name, amen.
Thank you very much, Pastor Lawson. The first item on our agenda for approval is item number 3, which is the City Council meeting minutes of October 30th, 31, November 6th, and 7th. I'll entertain a motion for those.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second for approval of item number 3. Any discussion? Hearing none, please vote. Motion carries. We have a full agenda today, and we have multiple meetings of the City Council today. I just want to, for courtesy of folks who are waiting here for a long time, just kind of tell you a little bit about how the order of events will go today. We have a special meeting time certain today at 10:30. We do have a few items that will be heard individually today on our morning agenda. I do know that item 14 will likely be pulled, and so that item will probably not be heard in this morning period. I'm going to recess our A session at or around 10:30 so we can go ahead and have that special meeting. Any items that we don't get to in the morning part, we will come back to immediately after our 10:30 session, which would last maybe a couple of hours, just so everyone's clear on how that will go. However, we do have a full A session agenda, so we have one item so far listed for individual consideration. That is item number 4. So let me ask my colleagues now if there are any other items to pull from the consent agenda to hear individually.
Item 22.
Item 22,
41, 42, and 43.
items 41 through 43,
14.
item 14. Any others? Okay, I have the following items that will be heard individually: items 4, 14, 22, 41, 42, and 43. Everything else, yes. Everything else will be heard on consent, so
I'd like to call order in listening to individual items.
okay.
So if we have time, that 14 is done before the others.
Okay. Well, we won't have time, but we can hear people who have signed up to speak. So we have items 4, 14, 22, 41 through 43. Any others before I entertain a motion for the consent agenda? I'd take a motion on the remainder of consent. If you're part of the discussion, please have a seat. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
I make a motion.
There's a motion and a second. Councilmember White.
Yeah, Mayor, I believe the councilwoman wanted,
All right, if there's no other items to pull from the consent agenda, I'll
Mayor.
go ahead and take folks who have signed up to speak. If there's any other items to pull from the consent agenda, let me know
Which one's
before we've gotten to the
reproductive
vote.
justice?
So,
Mayor, if you'll give me 1 second, there is another one that,
all right, so I'm going to call Cynthia
27.
Cavazos on item number 6. Cynthia Cavazos, are you here?
you'll pull it.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 27, Jack Finger.
Mayor Nirenberg, other members of our illustrious San Antonio City Council. For the record, my name is Jack M. Finger. Item 27. What does it say? Well, let's take a look at it. One that is very much buried, but can be very controversial. An ordinance authorizing contracts with Empower House, SA, Lash Support, etc., Young Women's Christian Association for a cumulative amount of nearly $500,000 for term through November 30th for our service promote community capacity building, healthcare navigation, and reproductive and sexual health care. What is this? Well, apparently it's the so-called Reproductive Justice Fund. You know, the one that where many of y'all wanted to transport women, essentially transport women across state lines to get abortions. Yeah, let's see, what else does it do here? Mr. Audiovisual Man put that up there. See what it says there. Authorize execution of following agreements to promote essentially health care navigation and reproductive and sexual health care. Keep scrolling down. Maybe it's the next page there. Yeah. Reproductive justice is a term coined by to encompasses the right not to have children. Yeah. Flip the page if you would. What else does it say? Supposedly it's going to try and close some reproductive health gaps, and one of them is access to abortion. Access to abortion. U.S. pregnancies entered in abortion before Dobbs was about 52,000, and now it's about down to 52 later on. Flip the next page if you would there. So yeah, evidence-based provides sexual and reproductive health care education works, including evidence-based sexual education in high schools and wraparound prenatal care services. Okay. Those of you on the council may wish to ask one of the following questions here. Does this reproductive justice fund in any way, shape, or form support the transporting of persons to abortionists? We need a definitive answer on this, because that's what you had brought up earlier. Then we kept getting conflicting reports that no, it's not there. Well, we want to know definitively once and for all. Here's another big question. Do the contraceptives mention that being offered, does any of them include the abortion pill? Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Finger. All right, we're going to go to council discussion now. That's everyone. Actually, I'm sorry. Item 40 does have one person signed up to speak on it. Jeff Exler on item 40. You're waiving your time, sir? Okay. All right, we'll get right now to council discussion on the consent agenda. If you can queue up, please. I don't have anyone. 1 second. You'd like to pull 27? Okay, so 27 will be heard individually. Okay. All right, so the following items now are on consent, and I have consensus on pulling that one. Items 14, 22, 27, 41, 42, and 43, and that's also in addition to item 4, which we'll hear in just a minute. Okay. All right, so Councilmember Castillo on the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. This morning, I would like to highlight item 23. I'm excited with the agreement between River City Produce and the work that they do to support Metro Health's Healthy Neighborhoods program. I recently visited River City Produce facility and learned so much through the process that they go through to provide fresh fruits and vegetables from San Antonio and beyond. And just the whole process before it makes its way to HEB is fascinating. They are incredible partners on the Food Policy Council, and they go out of their way to provide fresh fruits to residents who have SNAP benefits through their Double Up Food Bucks program at the Chicho Boys Fruit Market. As your community health chair, I find it important to remind folks of incorporating more fruits and vegetables into our diet and how it can reduce the risk of heart disease, low blood pressure, and the health benefits are numerous, and we're grateful to have this pivotal family, small-owned business in District 5. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Castillo. Councilmember Rocha Garcia.
Thank you, Mayor, and I want to take a moment to thank Metro Health and the team from Palo Alto College staff for working on a dental hygiene program for several years. We know oral health is an important element of a person's overall health and well-being, and I know that this program actually began before my council term, so shout out to former Councilman Ray Saldana, but I've been supportive of these efforts and appreciate the connection to education on this. Not only is the focus of this program to provide quality dental hygiene care services to our local community, but it's also an opportunity for students to gain hands-on experience and serve residents who may not otherwise be able to afford these services. Presenting these career pathways is critical as we build out our education and our healthcare ecosystems in South San Antonio, and aligning our efforts to increase healthcare access and education opportunities in underserved areas continues to be a priority. I had the opportunity to see the dental hygiene clinic in person, and I was amazed and eager to let residents know that this clinic is in our community. We know the need exists, and so again, I'm very appreciative of Palo Alto College and their entire team for all of their community engagement initiatives, hosting multiple family-friendly events to make sure that their campus is more welcoming to students and residents in the area as well. The PAC team continues to engage with residents and share information about programs like the dental hygiene clinic. The Metro Health team also collaborates with PAC very well. Our District 4 team and other community partners provide information about resources, services, and programs to residents, and especially in these areas where concerning health comes, we know exist. It's critical. So thank you to all those involved. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Rocha Garcia, Councilmember Villagrán.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to highlight item 16, nomination of Holt Texas LTD under the Texas Enterprise Zone Program. Texas Enterprise Zone Program is an economic development tool that allows local communities to partner with the state of Texas to encourage job creation and capital investment in economically distressed areas. HoltCat operates in Louisiana and throughout Texas, where they maintain their headquarters in San Antonio in District 3 and are active in the local community, including projects with CASA, scholarships with the universities. So Holt intends to invest $9.75 million in real and personal property to expand its current headquarters campus. With the expansion of their facilities, they will be retaining 879 full-time jobs. And as the company's June 2024 report, they count over 1,000 full-time jobs at the project site and have invested over $43.8 million in real and personal property improvements. So I look forward to getting your support today on this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Villagrán. Councilmember McKee Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to highlight item 12A, approval of Lakin Hall to the LGBTQIA+ Advisory Board. I believe she is here today. If you wouldn't mind standing. If you wouldn't mind standing. Feel free to clap. Lakin Hall is a phenomenal young woman who will be a wonderful addition to the LGBTQIA+ Advisory Board. Lakin is a graduate of the University of North Texas who returned to San Antonio to pursue her passion for social justice, dive further into her love of film, and to be close and supportive of her mother and grandmother, who she loves so much. We're so excited to appoint her today to round out the committee so that she can share her voice and perspectives on some of our most pressing issues as a community. Thank you again, Lakin, and thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember McKee Rodriguez. Councilmember Alderete Gavito.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to highlight item number 11, the lease amendment for the Las Mamas for the Spay and Neuter Clinic. I just wanted to quickly highlight this item to express my excitement about this project. I advocated for a new Spay and Neuter Clinic on the west side in the fiscal year 2024 budget discussions, and I partnered with Councilwoman Terry Castillo and Councilwoman Socorro. So seeing it come to life is extremely gratifying for all of us. I'm glad that we're finally addressing the issue at hand of making pet sterilization more accessible to folks on the west side where dogs free of restraint create a huge public safety issue. I'm supportive of this amendment to the contract and anything we need to do to make this clinic a reality as soon as possible. And I also want to thank Michael Shannon for all the work he has done as the interim ACS director in pushing this project forward. I'm looking forward to seeing the final result. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Alderete Gavito. Councilmember Cabello Havrda.
Thanks, Mayor. I have a few items to highlight. First is 15, which is approval of a new peer-to-peer vehicle sharing operation agreement at the airport. As we continue to expand our airport and the services that it provides, this agreement allows a new category of services to operate at our airport. It's exciting and another opportunity for transportation and getting around the city. Items 28, 29, and 30 are resolutions of no objection for 3 housing developments in the city's ETJ. The 3 developments, Galm Apartments, Sage Lofts, and Westdell Apartments, are in Bexar County, adjacent to District 6 along Culebra Road. And they represent 972 units, which will 786 of which will be affordable housing. So the rent will be restricted at 60% below AMI. And it's part of our community that's growing really fast. It's just outside the city, but it provides a good opportunity to include affordable housing. Item 38 authorizes an amendment to our current contract for concealable body armor for our officers and will allow SAPD, Park Police, and our aviation police to continue receiving vital protective gear to do their jobs needed while on duty. The safety of our officers, of course, is a top priority, and so this is critical in ensuring our law enforcement personnel are equipped to handle the daily risks of their work. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Councilmember Cabello Havrda. Councilmember White.
Thanks, Mayor. I want to highlight item 12B, the appointment of Dennis Stuckey to the Veterans Advisory Commission. Dennis is a great man, a veteran, and we're very, very proud in District 10 that he's agreed to serve on the Veterans Advisory Commission. So thank you so much to Dennis, and we look forward to his service.
Thank you, Councilmember White. Councilmember Core.
Thank you, Mayor. I have 2 items to highlight today. The first is item 6, which is installing a contract for an HVAC at Frank Garrett Community Center. It's a community center on the west side that gets a lot of use, and so we want to make sure that everyone there has a cool environment to be able to use that facility. And then the second one is item number 31, which is the contract for Texas Rio Grande Legal Aid. We had the opportunity to work with them to do a Know Your Rights session for Robert E. Lee tenants a few weeks ago, and I was very impressed with the organization and how much they truly care for our residents. So excited to see them get this contract. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Core. And also wanted just to mention TRLA and the Right to Counsel program, which is providing essential legal services for residents. This particular agreement is the result of will result in free legal aid to roughly 330 households at or below 80% of our AMI. The Right to Counsel program has helped now over 4,000 residents through court clinics, eviction prevention resources, and education through partnerships with firms like Texas Rural Legal Aid and the Burke County Justice of the Peace processes on average 500 evictions per week. So this is an essential service. Thank you for your support. With that, there is a motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda. All items save for 4, 14, 22, 41, 42, and 43, as well as 27. Please vote. Motion carries. We'll bring up item number 4.
Item number 4 is an ordinance approving Baltazar Buddy Vargas as the city internal auditor of the city of San Antonio.
All right. Buddy, come on up. As you know, our community has been well served by an independent auditor, which is a function of the City Council and a position which is authorized by the City Council through our charter. And so we recently saw the retirement of our longtime city manager, city auditor, Kevin Barthold, who did a tremendous job. Did I make Eric nervous? Buddy has been selected to be our new city auditor. So I'm going to turn the floor now to Councilmember Villagrán for some remarks, and then we're going to see our new city auditor get sworn in, and we'll give you the floor, Buddy, as well to address the council.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Buddy, for putting your name up there and making sure that you continue to serve the city. Thank you for your service so far. I want to thank my committee members, which included Councilman John Courage, Councilman Rocha Garcia, I think, and my council members for making this choice as we move forward. We worked really hard in the search, and we found our answer right here in our backyard. So I'm very excited about that, and I want to thank Crystal and Jeff and the team for all that they did. It was quite a process, but we did our due diligence, and here we are today. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Villagrán. Before we get to the action, Buddy, would you like to have the floor and make some comments?
Sure. Mayor, City Council members, I really appreciate the opportunity to be involved in this process. I learned a lot. Looking forward to working with each and every one of you. Looking forward to working with Eric and his team. Just thank you for the confidence you have in myself and also my team. Some of my team are here today. But just thank you for that confidence. And again, I just wanted to just show my appreciation. Thank you.
All right. Well, I'll entertain a motion on item number 4.
Sorry. I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second for approval of item number 4. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please vote. Motion carries. Welcome aboard, buddy. We'll get you sworn in now.
All right, thank you.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. In the name
In the name
and by the authority
and by the authority
of the state of Texas,
of the state of Texas,
I
I,
state your name,
Baltasar Vargas,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully
that I will faithfully
execute the
execute
duties
the duties
of the office of
of the office of
City Internal Auditor
City Internal Auditor
for the city of San Antonio
for the city of San Antonio
of the state of Texas,
of the state of Texas,
and will,
and will,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
preserve,
reserve,
protect,
protect,
and defend
and defend
the Constitution
the Constitution
and laws
and laws
of the United States
of the United States
and of this state.
and of this state.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vargas. We look forward to working with you. All right, we'll go now to item number 14.
Item number 14 is an ordinance approving contracts with Host True Flavors, SAT FB LLC for food and beverage concession services, and Paradise Lagarde at SAT 2024 LLC for retail concession services for an estimated total revenue of over $54 million for over 10-year terms. Revenues generated from these contracts will be deposited within the airport operating maintenance fund.
All right. Item number 14 has a few folks signed up to speak on it. Do we have a presentation first, though?
Good morning, Mayor and Council. We do have a presentation if needed. I can go through the presentation first, or if we want to just discuss it.
Okay, well, let's save the presentation unless we need it. So why don't we go ahead to discussion, starting with public comments. So I've got a few folks signed up to speak on item 14, and they're all signed up in a group. So Johnny Hernandez, Elizabeth Johnson, Jason Dady, Allison Balfour, and Anthony Alessi. And you guys are signed up as a group, so you'll have 9 minutes. Johnny?
Amazing. I love to come here and understand all the work that you do. So thank you. Mayor, City Council, Manager, Jeff Coyle. I want to take an opportunity to acknowledge the work of Jesus and his team. After being at the airport now a little over 12 years, his team has been able to accomplish so much in such a short amount of time. And he is doing such important transformational work, and I just hope we can keep him here a very long time. Many of you know I grew up on the west side of San Antonio. Dad would say, I don't want you making tacos your whole life. These tacos are the ones that prepared me to send me to the Culinary Institute of America. They would create an opportunity for me to be on Top Chef, to be on multiple Food Network shows, to be in hundreds of articles and magazines, even an invitation to the White House. It is my culture and my food traditions that I have shared that have led the culinary transformation of areas in our community, in our city, like the Pearl, like the Frost Bank Center with the Spurs, and finally SAT, our San Antonio International Airport. 12 years ago, what brought a smile to my face most often is when I would hear a traveler say, I just had the best Mexican food at the airport in San Antonio. And that brought so much pride to me and to my team. This team you see behind me has over 200 years of combined culinary operational experience. They are the top culinary innovators in San Antonio, and together we represent the true taste of San Antonio. They are James Beard nominated, they are Iron Chefs, they are culinary ambassadors, they are experts on nutrition, they are Michelin awarded and recognized Badass stars, yeah. I can't open social media without seeing Nicola on Instagram, so it gives me so much pride for the work that we've accomplished in our community as a city, and thank you for supporting our culinary community for many years. I'll ask Nicola to come up first.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. My name is Chef Nicola Black, and I'm the owner of the Jerk Shack located on the far west side of San Antonio near SeaWorld. Our restaurant has been honored as one of the best new restaurants in America by both GQ and Eater in 2019 and 2020. This year, we were featured on Food Network's Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, and most recently, we received the prestigious Bib Gourmand distinction from Michelin Guide. In addition to the Jerk Shack, I also own Freight Fried Chicken at Historic Pearl, where we tell an untold story of the origins of fried chicken in America. My culinary journey began after serving 10 years on active duty as a logistics non-commissioned officer, completing 4 combat tours alongside my husband, Cornelius Massey, a decorated war hero and Purple Heart recipient. Over a decade ago, we relocated from Hawaii to San Antonio so I could attend the Culinary Institute of America. As an immigrant from Jamaica and a proud American, it has been my privilege to share my heritage through food and contribute to the rich culinary tapestry of San Antonio. The city has become not only our home, but also the foundation of my career and a place where I've been able to make my mark. It is truly an honor to be a part of this powerhouse team of chefs, where talent, passion, and cultural diversity are unmatched. Chef Johnny, our fearless leader, has been the driving force behind so much of our collective success. He paved the way for chefs like me to embrace and celebrate our heritage through food. His efforts to elevate the depth and richness of Mexican cuisine have not only redefined perceptions, but also created space for chefs of all backgrounds to thrive and share their stories. Today, the Jerk Shack has grown into an internationally recognized brand, and that success is rooted in the trailblazing work of pioneers like Chef Johnny and his iconic brand, La Gloria. Chef Johnny's vision has propelled San Antonio onto the global stage, inspiring and enabling chefs like me to create worldwide brands of our own. The foundation of my journey began with his leadership, and I firmly believe that his legacy deserves to be enshrined here at San Antonio Airport. Chef Johnny is the magic that unites us all, and his influence extends far beyond what many will ever realize. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. My name is Elizabeth Johnson, and what I'd like to point out and remind everyone of is that San Antonio is the only city in the entire United States that has a World Heritage designation for cultural patrimony of mankind for our 5 Franciscan missions, and a Creative Cities designation for our City of Gastronomy. So our City of Gastronomy designation creates this opportunity for us to use food and culture to bring people together, as well as a driver for sustainable economic development. And I have to tell you that that honor would not be bestowed upon San Antonio if it were not for Chef Johnny Hernandez. Before our tricentennial, he came to me with a 3-ring binder and he said, "Elizabeth, this needs to happen. And if you get behind it, I will mobilize everyone I know. We need this for the city of San Antonio." So I stand before you proudly today because my restaurant, Farm Table, embodies all of the sustainability development goals that our UNESCO City of Gastronomy designation represents. And I am so proud that our 10-year anniversary is going to be marked by us entering into the San Antonio airport and being able to serve visitors. And I'm a part of this amazing group of chefs and professionals, and we are going to take that City of Gastronomy designation to the airport so that when our visitors enter and leave, they are reminded of our powerhouse of culture, food, and puro San Antonio. So here we go.
Mayor, Council, thank you for having me. My name is Jeff Balfour, and I'm the owner of Southerly Hospitality Group, which includes Southerly Fine Food and Brewery, Brasserie Manchuchu, and Hot South at the Rim. I just wanted to start by thanking you guys. I moved to San Antonio 22 years ago, and I really wanted to take this time to thank Chef Johnny. From that time, I opened Hotel Valencia downtown, won multiple Best Restaurant Hotel Awards, as well as completing Leadership San Antonio. Fresh out of there, the developers of Pearl came to ask me to consider opening a restaurant, and Chef Johnny was there for me the whole time. From that day on, we worked hard towards it. True story, I had I don't know if I've ever told you this, but I had one goal, and I said if I could come somewhere close to what Johnny makes, I'll be successful at Pearl. After year one, I rolled past him. Sorry, brother. But it had to be done. And we held on to that title for a long time until we opened Manshushu, which is now the most popular restaurant at Pearl. But anyway, it all goes back to thanking Johnny for this opportunity. He's been with us 22 years, every step of the way. He's been there for me. We were recently very humbled to win a Bib Gourmand as well for Southerly, which will be 10 years old in April. So not bad for an old girl like that. So thank you guys for having us and this opportunity.
Good morning, Council. Thank you for having us, and thank you again for the recommendation for this package. We're completely humbled and honored. There's a couple things I'd like to point out. As I was sitting through this process this week, I realized, and it sounded naive almost to say it out loud, but this literally has the ability to be the best restaurant chef group in an airport in the world. In the world, with Michelin recognition, James Beard recognition, and everybody. And I started thinking, what airports have that? And I just simply couldn't come up with one. And I think that's something that's so proud and honorable for all of us moving forward. I think where we're very successful is you have a group of people here that are highly committed to their craft and care so much about their brand, that we care so much about not only what we do in our markets, which I realized yesterday as well. I got 18 seconds. We're spread out throughout the city, from the north side to the south side to Southtown to the west side to the east side. This group is a great representation of San Antonio, and I think you're going to see the success in that moving forward with the city coverage and the multi-unit ability for us, that we understand how to operate multiple units. I think is critically important to the success of this restaurant. Johnny, thank you. Host, thank you. We're privileged to be here, and I just want you all to know how thankful we are. Thank you.
Thank you very much, chefs. Well done.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right. That's everyone who signed up to speak on item 14, so we'll begin council discussion now. Councilmember Viagran.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to amend the main motion to direct Aviation Department staff to negotiate with host True Flavors.
One second, Councilmember, we'll need to get a main motion first.
I make a motion to approve.
Good.
Now I move to...
All right, motion made by Councilmember Kaur, seconded by Castillo. Councilmember Viagran.
I move to amend the main motion to direct Aviation Department staff to negotiate with host True Flavors for a prime concession agreement for food and beverage package 1 at San Antonio International Airport and return to council for approval if an agreement is reached. If agreement is not reached, then staff is directed to issue a solicitation for a prime concession agreement for food and beverage package 1.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second for the amendment to the main motion, which in effect authorizes the manager to negotiate on behalf of the council package 1. We are also awarding package 2 in this amendment today. So, and that is a negotiation with the awardees of package 2 for that additional section. Everybody clear on that? Okay, we'll continue discussion now. Councilmember Cabello-Havrda. And we'll go ahead and take this as one discussion, and then we'll vote on the amendment first before the main motion.
Okay. I'll be brief. I just want to clarify that the amendment that was made by Councilwoman Viagran that allows the city, Jesus, to negotiate with host on what concepts will be at the airport, correct?
Yes, and I'm not trying to play attorney here. The main motion is to award the retail package to Parodies, the food and beverage package 2 to host, and then to give authority to the staff, the airport staff, to go negotiate with host for package 1, the one that we were not bringing forward for approval today.
That's what the amendment.
Yes, that's what the amendment.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Mayor.
All right, again, we'll do one discussion, then we'll take the amendment vote and then the main motion. Councilmember Rocha Garcia.
Thank you, Mayor. And I just wanted to just say again how proud I am of every single one of you to represent San Antonio. The City of Gastronomy designation, I sit on the Visit San Antonio board, and that's what people talk about. They talk about how wonderful the food is. A few of my colleagues and I were recently in Tampa, and everybody's excited about when they're going to come back to San Antonio, and the thing that keeps coming up and is constant is the food. And the variety of food, by the way, was mentioned several times last week during NLC, and that makes me so proud, right? Because like Chef Johnny talked about tacos, and we talk about tacos, but there's so much more, and every single one of you brings your unique concepts into it, and I'm so proud that you all can work together, because I believe that working together, there's enough room for everybody to shine and for the city to shine, and you all don't compete against each other. You bring one another up, you uplift each other, you empower each other, and let me tell you, that's just so refreshing and uncommon. And so in a world where there's so much competition and where people are trying to again, just push each other out of the way. Not here, not in our city. You are San Antonio. And again, I'm just so incredibly proud of you all. And Chef Johnny, I feel like you're the Iron Man of the Avengers that you've assembled here, or that you're leading, right? And so I know it's Iron Chef, right, that y'all are after, but I feel like you're the Iron Man of San Antonio. And so just so proud to say that we live in a city that gets to work collaboratively together. And to your point, Chef Dady, earlier when you were saying, I was thinking about that, and I was thinking, where have I traveled that I've seen something like this? And yeah, nowhere. I couldn't think of it either. So I'm glad that you said it, because I think you travel a little bit more than I do. But I'm just so grateful for the opportunity to be able to say that we have the best restaurants at the San Antonio Airport. So grateful also to Jeff and to the team and everybody who is here in support today. Thank you so much, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Viagran. Councilmember Rocha Garcia. Councilmember White.
Thanks, Mayor. I want to thank Jesus, city staff, Jeff, all of our team for all the work they've done in this regard. It's really an embarrassment of riches, I think, that we have here in San Antonio in terms of culinary talent. And I think without question, whatever the specifics are on how this ends up, our airport here in San Antonio will have the best food in the country, and I'm excited about that. In terms of the motion, I am supportive of the councilwoman's motion. I believe that allowing our city team to negotiate directly on this other package and figure out exactly what's going to be best to put in the airport is the way to go. So I appreciate everybody's work on that, and I'm supportive of the motion. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember White. Councilmember Alderete Gavito.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be brief. I did also want to thank Jesus and Jeff. I know this was no easy feat, but also I'm going to echo what Councilwoman Dr. Rocha Garcia said. I think seeing the makeup of the teams, it's really inspiring how we linked arms and formed great teams collectively. I don't think that you see that in other cities. San Antonio is a collaborative city, and I think teamwork makes the dream work, right? And so thank y'all so much for lifting each other up when sometimes others don't. I really appreciate that thread that we see. I'm also supportive of the motion. I'm looking forward to moving this forward. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Alderete Gavito. Councilmember Courage.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to commend the work that all of these great chefs have been doing in this community, I know for many, many years. And I think that the restaurants and the operations that you run really benefit the people in our community immensely and have really given us national recognition. And I think as we've heard maybe even from Jason, international recognition. But I will say that I had an opportunity to sit and talk with several of you yesterday over lunch, and we talked about this very situation. And if the council recalls, there was a recommendation from the city airport staff that we don't award both contracts at the time that these were presented, that they be broken up into 2 contracts. And I spoke about this because I was a little concerned about how the second opportunity for more restaurants didn't seem to match the expectation that the first was going to grant us, particularly the size and the return to the city. Now, what we're talking about today is, as a council, deciding we want to change the process we agreed to, or that the city staff put in place. There was supposed to be a second opportunity for this group and maybe 1 or 2 or whoever many others who wanted to bid on the second set of spaces at the airport. And it was agreed that that would be how we move forward. I hate to think that the council is going to be influenced to change procedures in midstream politically. That, and I enjoyed the lunch with these people. They're great people. They do a great operation. But for them to come, or anyone to come around and say, well, you know, we don't have to do this process, even though we agreed that we would do that, we can change it because we like these people. And I don't disagree we like them, and I don't disagree they do a good job, but I do disagree of changing a process for what I consider to be good old boy kind of reasons. So I cannot vote to approve the amendment because I think we should go through with the process we put in place. I think that should be the integrity of this council. So that's what I have to say. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Courage. Councilmember Pelaez.
Thanks to everybody for showing up. Councilwoman Villagran always says, I don't like amendments from the dais, but today I celebrate the amendment, Councilwoman. This is a smart one, and I just want to make sure everybody's watching. We're doing an amendment from the dais, and it's coming from D3, and it's a good thing. And so we have, so here's what I want, and tell me if this is what I'm getting, Jesus, if I support this amendment, okay? I want to make sure that we're getting authenticity, like we've all been talking about since the beginning, right? That is that when people get off an airplane, they're going to be wowed by San Antonio smacking them in the face, right? I mean, it's going to be an explosion of San Antonio all over them as they walk through this airport by seeing these fantastic concepts, right? That doesn't change by approving this amendment, right?
That is correct. You can tell
by approving this amendment, we're also making sure to give you the authority to negotiate so that we don't leave any money on the table. In other words, it's going to have to be good math that works for the taxpayer, right?
That is correct. As city stewards, we're going to do all possible to continue to create additional revenues for our airport enterprise fund.
And my understanding is that by approving this amendment, what we're doing, and I want to make sure that you understand the marching orders, is that we're giving you the authority to negotiate, right, for all the spots, some of the spots, or none of the spots. At the end of the day, it would be up to you, right?
That is correct.
Okay. And I think that's smart because the last thing that I want, and this is why I celebrate the amendment, the last thing that I want is for this to develop into a food fight, for lack of a better term, a food fight up here on the dais between council members, picking and choosing where Elizabeth Tanner, I'm sorry, Chef Elizabeth, where are you? Chef Elizabeth Johnson, where her concept will be, or where Lisa Fullerton's concept will be, right? And I think that, we're policymakers, not airport spot pickers, right? And I think that that's what you guys are here for. And so with that understanding that you get to pick all, some, one, or none, I'm cool with it, and you'll get my support. Thank you, Councilwoman Villagran.
Thank you, Councilmember Pelaez. Councilmember Kaur.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm super excited to vote on this item today. We mentioned this just a couple of weeks ago when you all were all here, and with the retail package, excited to be shopping at Felice Modern at the airport, and with the food and beverage package. Obviously exciting to be eating all of this amazing, delicious food at the airport. I actually disagree with my colleague that the motion that is made today is a part of this good old boys group. I think what we're doing is saving taxpayer dollars. If you fly through United or fly United or Terminal B, you know that food court needs a facelift 5 years ago. And so by making this decision today, we are allowing our amazing airport team, who we all agree is really strong, to be able to negotiate a package from a group that already scored the highest on that package. So it's not a handout that was provided. All of the folks that applied were ranked for that package, and this group scored the highest. So to me, this is a decision that is being made to give our city leaders the ability to make a decision in a more efficient way, saving taxpayer dollars, to allow for really great concepts at the airport. I have one clarifying question for, I guess, either from the host team or Jesus, if you want, if y'all could answer. Do they have the ability to amend their package when they're resubmitting, or you all will negotiate to figure out how to readjust, since I know there were some changes that were made? Maybe Jeff, if you want to take that.
Councilman, I think it's fair to say there's not currently a package 1 on the table. When we asked them to bid originally, we asked them to provide a package for a proposal for both package 2 and package 1. There was some overlap in that. And you're right, we asked for some adjustments because we loved some concepts that were in 1 that we ultimately moved into 2. So this motion would give Jesus the ability to go negotiate on package 1, and our expectation is it would at least be partially a new set of concepts because we don't want the overlap. We're starting essentially fresh in the negotiations.
Okay, great. And I think what's also important, and I love that Councilman Villagrán added this to the amendment, is that if no agreement is reached, then we will do another RFP. And I think that's really important because making sure that there is a backstop there. So I think that's important. And the other thing that I just wanted to add is, as you all are thinking about concepts, the important part about this group is that each chef has equity in this package. And I think that's what's important. That's what brings buy-in and that want to make sure it's the best possible product. And I think what was also mentioned around being able to operate multiple concepts is difficult. I know Chef Johnny, also, that was so beautiful to have all of your colleagues be up there, and really, I hope you keep that recording, because if you ever need to hear it, it was really beautiful to hear all of your colleagues talk about how big of an impact that you have made on the food scene here in San Antonio. So anywho, I just want to say that I echo the amendment, and thank you for bringing it forward. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Corr. Councilmember McKee Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor. Dr. Corr, I almost fell out of my seat too when I heard Good Old Boys Club. And I want to express that, typically a Good Old Boys Club is, a group of white men who use their connections and influence to benefit each other, excluding women and minorities. And I find it hilarious to look at a group that is largely people of color, many women, minorities, and say that that's the Good Old Boys Club. And while the Good Old Boys Club does happen, I don't think that's what this is. All that said, I want to express hesitation in supporting the motion. I think I would prefer to give an opportunity for the other applicant to apply, to submit. I don't know that there would be too much harm in that, but if we believe that at the end, host is going to be the awardee, I also don't want to waste the time of others, and so I'm inclined to support. I would want to know do we have the option to, say, give 2 weeks for parodies to submit and then review and come back with the recommendation at the end of the year?
So, Councilman, we wouldn't recommend that. I mean, Parodies did not bid on this portion of the agreement, and it's one of the reasons why we recommended at the B session, and the staff recommendation today is to go back out for RFP. I think the Councilwoman's motion makes it clear that with direction that we will go negotiate with the company and the group that submitted, went through the process, come to agreeable terms, and come back to council for approval, or if not, then go to RFP. So.
I think that's all I needed to hear. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember McKee Rodriguez, Councilmember Castillo.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Jesus and team. I'm supportive of the motion because I trust you all to negotiate on behalf of city leadership. With that, I just wanted to be sure that I thank Chef Johnny Hernandez and the team that he's curated, from the creativity in the kitchen to the creativity that you all have brought to the city of San Antonio. We are extremely grateful, and thank you for highlighting the role of the city of San Antonio as being one of the few World Heritage sites, and that we are a city of gastronomy. And I think each of you all highlight the different flavor of San Antonio in one fantastic package. So I know the work that you all do takes skill, passion, creativity, and I look forward to you all continuing to expand that genius that y'all have. So just thank y'all so much, and I will be supportive of Councilman Vigran's motion. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Castillo. Councilmember Villagran.
Thank you, Mayor. And I don't know if we have time to pull up the slide where it shows the host True Flavors points between them and the other two bidders. If we could pull that up. I think, you know, I think what you're hearing from this dais is we care about our City of Gastronomy designation, about our efforts to let the world know we are the culinary capital of Texas, that we appreciate our airport and we're confident in Jesus and his team to negotiate, and that we are committed to the businesses that are headquartered here in San Antonio. And when we got the B session presentation, far and away, there was a front runner. And as many of my colleagues said, I just didn't understand how we could not give our airport team the opportunity to negotiate before we sent this out to RFP. So I am confident in Isaul and Chef Johnny and Jason and Chef Nicola and all of you there that we are going to negotiate something that's going to be really great. That's our confidence. If not, again, we'll send it out for an RFP. But as of now, I think this is the right move. I think it's going to save money, and I think it isn't going to waste time, because you did put together an incredible team that far and away blew everybody out of the water, and I just want to get this done. Jesus, specifically, the sooner the better, because we're traveling a lot and we do need more food options at the airport. So thank you for being here today. Thank you for sharing. I look forward to seeing this motion pass, and I thank my council members for their support.
Thank you, Councilmember Villagran. Councilmember Courage.
Thank you. You know, we sat in the B session and we heard this very recently, and at the end of that session, it was determined by I think the city staff that we would move forward and allow for competitive bids, a new request for proposal for one of the two proposals that was not selected, and we had one of the companies there that said yes, they can have that proposal ready within just a few weeks. So when we left that meeting, that's what we left with. And to begin with, we said we weren't going to give one company both awards. That's how it was publicized, and that's how people bid. So I can't understand why we don't want to stick with a process and a procedure that we put in place. And let me ask the city manager, when will these new restaurants or businesses be put in place at the airport?
I'll ask Jesus to come up, or Jeff, yeah.
Councilman, there's a construction schedule in their proposal. The earliest is, I believe, February of '25, and it would unfold over the course of next year. So a big requirement of this is capital construction in those spaces that the concessionaire
Right. So we're talking about no one opening up for business for probably a year and a half from now, or 16 months from now. And obviously, if we went out for bids, which we said we were going to do on the second part of these facilities, we'd have plenty of time to get those in. As a matter of fact, I think we set like a 30-day deadline. So there really isn't any time certain that we need to get these decisions made, but we did say we were going to give other companies an opportunity to bid, and now we're saying, no, we don't need to. You know, and good old boys come in all colors and all shapes and all styles. And so, you know, I love these people. I know they're going to do a great job, but I think, I'll say it again, the integrity of this council should carry some weight when it comes to sticking to what we say we're going to do.
Thank you, Councilmember Courage. And I'll go ahead and close this out unless there's any additional conversation. First, I'm a little sad because part of what's getting lost in all this is an incredibly elevated retail experience that is coming to the terminal as well. So I do want to thank Parodies for the submission of an incredible retail proposal that also takes into account the local flavor and brands of our city. Some of my wife's favorite stores are going to be in the new terminal, so hopefully that doesn't mean she's traveling more, but it's going to be exciting to see those shops in our terminal. I do want to reflect a minute on what Chef Dady said, though, which sounded like hyperbole, but I think it's actually fact. There won't be another terminal in the world that offers the flavor, diversity, and elevated experience that will be in our terminal as a result of this incredible team that can't be described as anything other than an all-star cast of the best culinary talent in Texas, if not beyond that, with a few missing pieces maybe. So congratulations on an incredible proposal. I think it showed in the scores. All of us have visited your restaurants and know that if we can bring that experience to other people that come to our city, they'll fall in love with San Antonio just like we did. I see that we have some folks from VSA in our chambers today, and we have 2 members of the board that are on the dais. My charge is, because we are essentially putting these restaurants on the front door for every visitor to see, and it is probably the best experience anyone will get from a restaurant in an airport. VSA should be using that to market our city. There's not a better demonstration of the city of gastronomy than what we will have in this terminal because of this contract. I am fully supportive of the amendment. Why can't we make that experience broader and also ensure that it's throughout the entire terminal? You guys knocked it out of the park. I'm really excited about it. This is a really easy vote for me to take. And so with that, Eric, do you want to have any final remarks?
Actually, Mayor, I thought you summed it up perfectly. I wanted to remind the council of the presentation 2 weeks ago. This overall is an excellent package, both from a food and beverage standpoint and the retail, and something that we've never had before at the International Airport. But I thought you summed it up perfectly. I just wanted to remind everybody that I think we're expecting great things as we continue to grow.
Great. All right. So we've got a lot of new things happening at the airport, a new terminal, but also a brand new terminal experience in the existing terminals too. So looking forward to that. With that, there's a motion and a second on the amendment to the main motion, which is to authorize our city staff to negotiate with HMS Host and to award Package 2 to HMS Host, as well as the retail package to Parodies. Please vote on the amendment. Motion carries, and then the main motion. As amended. Please vote. Main motion as amended. Yeah. Motion carries. All right. Congratulations, chefs. Congratulations, Parodies. Okay, so we do have a few items to get through in our morning agenda. We have a 10:30 session that I'd like to start as close to 10:30 as possible, but I do know there's some folks who are here on items 41 through 43 that I'd like to go ahead and hear from so we can release them and they can get on with their day. So if there's no objection from my colleagues, we'll open up items 41 through 43 for public comment, and then we'll get on to our special session. Any objections? Okay, so items 41 through 43, please.
Item number 41 is an ordinance extending the city limits by for-purpose annexation as requested by the property owner, Doggett Freightliner Properties, Third LLC of one property, legally described as 16.371 acres out of CB 5088, generally located at the southeast corner and intersection of Wycold Road and Interstate Highway I-10 East, which is contiguous to the city limits of San Antonio and located within the city of San Antonio's extraterritorial jurisdiction, ETJ, in East Bexar County, and approving a service agreement. This item was continued from November 7th, 2024. Item 42 is a plan amendment case PA 2024-116000022. Ordinance amending the IH-10 East Corridor Perimeter Plan, a component of the comprehensive master plan of the city, by changing the future land use classification from urban living to community commercial on 35.668 acres out of CB 5088 and NCB 18225, generally located at the southeast corner of the intersection of Wycold Road and Interstate Highway 10 East. Staff and Planning Commission recommend approval. Item number 43 is a zoning case Z 2024-107-00059. Ordinance assigning zoning to property currently OCL outside city limits, C-2 AHOD, Commercial Airport Hazard Overlay District, and NP10 AHOD, Neighborhood Preservation Airport Hazard Overlay District, to C2 CDAHOD, Commercial Airport Hazard Overlay District, with a conditional use for manufactured home, oversized vehicle sales, service, and storage on 35.668 acres out of CB 5088 and NCB 18225, generally located at the southeast corner of the intersection of Wycold Road and IH-10 East. Staff recommends approval. Zoning Commission recommends denial. All these items were continued from November 7th, 2024.
Thank you, Debbie. I know we have a few speakers signed up to speak, so we'll go down the list for items 41 through 43. First speaker we have is Jack Finger.
Well, Mayor Pro Tem, other members of the council, my name is Jack M. Finger, and items 41, 42, and 43, we've deliberated before here on this very council. Mr. McKee Rodriguez, you were the sponsor for this item here, but there's been some back and forth on this. We don't know what the council really wants to do in this. There was a lot of confusion earlier as to whether the company in question was being represented properly by you, or at least their side of the story. Now, but a lot of people have come up and expressing their opposition to this thing, and quite frankly, they need to, their side of the story needs to be considered mightily in this regard. For one thing, as you have noticed earlier, and as we have brought up before, is that for this annexation and what the company, the nature of the company there is a lot of opposition to this by all the surrounding residents. In fact, and within 200 feet, you had 76 notices go out, and at least 20 people oppose it. Yeah, that's over 20, that's 20, 25, maybe 30% right there. You're doing good if you get anywhere from 5 to 10% responses in opposition. And you had as many as, outside of 200 feet, you had as many as 77 people say, no, we don't want this. Don't put it near our neighborhood. We have to live next to it. Also, as many at the zoning commission meeting, you had as many as 30 people sign up to speak. They spoke either in person or by voicemail. You're doing good when you have 1 or 2 people in opposition. That's how bad this thing is. Why are they in opposition? Because if you look at the map, you will have seen it. It's hugging that company and its operations. Yes, the noise, the traffic. Who would want to live next to such a thing without any of the proper buffers? There are none there. That's why this thing is so bad. If you want to annex it, fine, but don't allow them to continue their operations with so many people in opposition to it. Like I repeat to you, they are the ones who have to live next to it. You don't. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Finger. Ken Brown?
I'm just here on behalf of the applicant to answer any questions if the council member has them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Scott Hardwick. Mr. Hardwick, you'll be followed by Vanessa Rodriguez.
Mayor, Council, good morning. Thank you for the time. I live in the Paloma subdivision, which my house directly backs up to this 35-acre property that you all are discussing. And I've followed this from the planning meetings through zoning to now. This is actually, I think, the 4th agenda, city council agenda this has been on, and it's been continued until today. And I in complete opposition to this for all the reasons that have been stated, and the main reasons being which were stated at your zoning commission meeting, which voted, I believe, 8-1 or 9-1 in opposition to this. It doesn't fit the plan. You all have a corridor plan, and the zoning fits that plan, and then you're in that same swipe of a pen wanting to put a project that is not within that zoning into this area that abuts thousands of homes and does not provide a symbiotic relationship with those residents that live there and provide any type of environment for them to interact with it. In fact, it walls itself off from it, from everyone there. And so for those reasons, I ask you all to be in opposition to this, and especially item number 43, which is the conditional use. I'm all for the zoning of commercial. That's what is being asked for there. That's what the applicant's asking for. But in the same breath, they're also saying, hey, put my light industrial project right here too. They also own 2 other pieces of land along the I-10 corridor within a half mile of this property. To me, there's a lot of other options. I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Mr. Hardwick. Vanessa Rodriguez. Ms. Rodriguez, you'll be followed by Mionari Pugh.
Hello, Mayor. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, and I pass. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. Mionari Pugh.
Good morning. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, and I pass.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pugh. And I believe that is everyone who signed up to speak on items 41 through 43. As I mentioned before, we're not taking action on this at this moment. We will after our special session at 10:30. I'm going to move now to council points of personal privilege that have been. Councilmember Rocha Garcia, you didn't have one. Okay. All right. Councilmember Courage.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to remind the council and the community that this coming Sunday, we'll be hosting our second weapons exchange program, and we have a little presentation I'd like to show. Here you see weapons that were collected from our last weapon exchange. We collected over 900 at that event. This is where we were taking them to be destroyed. All the weapons that were collected at that time have been destroyed and will never be used to harm anybody or to commit a crime. We had more people show up. This is the actual part of the destruction. The weapons were laid on this vehicle because they were so individualized and then taken through the shredder. We had more people show up than we had HEB gift cards to exchange. We hope to have more and maybe have as many as 1,000 people bring weapons that they no longer want to keep in their home. So I just wanted to make the public aware it's going to be this Sunday from noon to 5 in the Alamodome parking lots. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Courage. All right, that is about as far as we can take our A session this morning before our special session. We do have a 10:30 special session to begin in just a few minutes. What I will do is recess for a 5-minute break for folks who are not going to stay for our 10:30 special session to filter out. Council can also get a refresher in the back. So why don't we reconvene at 10:32. So at 10:27 a.m. on the 21st of November 2024, the A session is now recessed. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning. Please take your seats and we'll begin our session today. The time is 10:45 a.m. on the 21st day of November 2024. We'll call our meeting to order. Madam Clerk, could you read the roll?
Councilmember Corr. Councilmember Mickey Rodriguez. Councilmember Villagran. Councilmember Rocha Garcia. Councilmember Castillo. Councilmember Cabello Haverda.
Here.
Councilmember Alderete Gavito.
Here.
Councilmember Pelaez. Councilmember Courage. Councilmember White. Mayor Nierenberg. Mayor, we have quorum.
All right, welcome everyone to our City Council special session on the proposed Sports and Entertainment District and Hemisphere and the surrounding areas. Before we get started here, I'd like to make a few remarks and welcome folks to our City Council chambers if it's been a while. I do want to especially acknowledge some of our partners in some of the things you'll be hearing from today. Most certainly President Taylor Amy from UTSA. I also want to acknowledge the presence of Peter John and Corinna Holt, as well as R.C. Buford from the San Antonio Spurs. We have State Representative Barbara Gervin-Hawkins with us as well. Thank you so much for joining us today on what we're unveiling, which is a pivotal moment in how we think about and experience downtown San Antonio, one of the most unique center cities in the country in a growing and dynamic city on the rise. Much of what has been made about some of the work that has brought us to this point, but I want to clarify that largely what we're going to hear today has been the work of very good and solid due diligence. We started with a basic question: can this be done? It's an incredible vision. The answer is yes, and so now the public engagement process begins. And I want to be clear, what we're discussing today is well beyond a simple facelift. It is not just a collection of projects. It is a unified and comprehensive vision for how we transform the experience of our city for local residents and visitors alike. And I believe it's time we go all in on a vision to build a downtown that is the envy of the world. The convergence of necessary upgrades to several major assets have provided us with a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. We have the chance to align our efforts to revitalize the old and build anew toward a more unified, modern, and desirable downtown, one that's also more livable. This effort can't be contained to any single decision we make at City Hall. The county, via other public agencies, the private sector, neighborhoods, and most importantly, the residents of San Antonio will be necessary partners to achieve this vision. But I want to highlight something very important. We are here today because San Antonio is a city that works together. We're an attractive place to live, start a business, and start a family. We've made landmark investments in our community to include affordable housing, workforce development, pre-K for SA, higher education, public transit, and more. The foundations of this city are becoming solid. Much of my time in City Hall has been spent working on policies to help residents better afford a life and a good life in this community. Our population is booming, our economy is rising in a more inclusive way, and I think it's safe to say that downtown is becoming the place to be. So I do want to say thank you to Eric, Lori, Ben, Andy, and all of our partners for your collaboration and collective vision to get us to this discussion. I look forward to the work ahead to realize what most of us here in this room have talked about for years, if not decades. And so, Eric, I'll turn it over to you to get us started.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, Mayor and Council. We are super excited to share with you this morning a vision and unique opportunity we have as the 7th largest city in this country. The vision builds upon the incredible assets that we have that are important to our economy, our residents, and our community. It builds upon all the transformational projects underway in downtown now. The Alamo, UTSA's continued expansion, and others, all within walking distance of the Riverwalk and 15,000 hotel rooms. We've dared to plan big. Our deliberate goal was to create a vibrant hub of activity that fosters our civic pride. And you'll see that in Lori's presentation. We've spent time to understand how other cities have approached similar efforts. We've done all of this due diligence, in order to develop an informed vision and plan. And our goal was to develop the strategy first. That's why we're here today. That due diligence also gets us to a point where we can begin engaging the community and stakeholders, and that begins today. There is a lot of work to do, but today is an important day to share that vision, and I think it's critical to recognize that this is going to take an entire team effort with dedicated partners. So without further delay, I'll turn the podium over to Assistant City Manager Lori Houston. Lori?
Thank you, Eric, and good morning, Mayor and Council. It is an honor to be here today in front of you to present the San Antonio Sports and Entertainment District. My presentation will provide the context on how we got here. I'll also talk about, what have we accomplished to date, and then talk about the next steps related to our funding plan and what we'll be requesting in terms of feedback. Now, Eric Walsh, Andy Segovia, Ben Grizel, and myself have been the team working on this, and we have done a lot of work, but it takes collaboration and partners, and we have several of those partners here with us today. First, we have Karina Holt and Peter Holt. Peter is chairman and majority owner of the San Antonio Spurs. We have R.C. Buford, who is the CEO of Spurs Sports and Entertainment. We also have Bobby Perez, Chief Legal Officer and General Counsel for Spurs Sports and Entertainment. We have Taylor Amy, President of the University of Texas, San Antonio. And we also have Juan Landa, who is the Vice Chair of the Hemisphere Park Area Redevelopment Corporation. The work you're going to see today is a result of many conversations and planning meetings over the past 18 months. While the partners and our consultants have accomplished a lot, we are still in the very early stages of this very layered and complicated project. But we believe we are now at the point that we can expand discussions and plan meetings with the community, who is our most important partner. Before I officially start, I want to explain what the San Antonio Sports and Entertainment District is. It is a community space anchored by 4 parks that are consistently activated. Within the community space are entertainment and convention facilities like the Henry B. Gonzalez Convention Center, the Alamo Dome, a mid-size event venue, a new convention center and hotel, a UTSA School of Hospitality, and a new arena for the San Antonio Spurs. The goal of the proposed Sports Entertainment District is to create a dynamic environment that combines sports, entertainment, dining, shopping, and residential uses that attract locals and tourists, drives economic vitality, and is accessible to our entire community. So that's what we are going to be talking about today. Now, how did we get here? It really started with President Amy coming to city management and sharing with us his plans to do the public-private partnership effort that they've always talked about doing on this site that UTSA owns within Hemisphere. That is a 14-acre site, and they've always intended on monetizing that site, and what they wanted to do was issue a P3 that got some music going on, setting the tone. This is awesome. But what we really wanted to do is make sure that we could be great partners.
That's Representative Hawkins, so.
Oh, no.
I'm celebrating, Mayor. I'm celebrating.
And so, with that information from Dr. Amy, Eric and I were thinking, how can we partner with them? And then also, how do we accommodate our needs? At that time, we found out that Austin and Dallas were doing new convention centers, actually tearing theirs down and going brand new. We also knew that our Alamo Dome was getting old. It was about to turn 30, which is pretty old in indoor arena standards. We knew that we needed more hotel rooms to accommodate our vibrant convention business. And then we wanted to connect downtown to the east side. We've been talking about this for years, but this is an opportunity to do it and do it right. And finally, let's accelerate the development of Hemisphere. We've been doing it every 5 years. with our general bond obligation, but we need to do it faster. And at this rate, if we don't do anything, it's not going to be developed until 2032 or beyond. Now, with this information, we approached the Spurs and asked them, would you be interested in coming downtown? And there was a resounding yes. They are looking for a place to enhance their fan experience and their team experience. And if you know anything about Spurs fans, that energy is amazing, and it could actually go through this entire district. And then finally, our partner at Bexar County. Their priority is what they do to the current Frost Center and the surrounding area. And so we want to support them as much as we can as they pursue the vision for that site, because you can't do one without the other. And so that's what we're all working on, and that's what we've been focused on for the past 18 months. Now, no doubt in my mind, a sports entertainment district, it's going to be transformational for this community. It's going to increase visitation. It's going to improve the quality of life for our residents. We will have adjacent development that's compatible with our community needs, and there'll be enhanced connectivity. And I'm talking about socially as well as physically. So what do we know? We do know that our convention center today is losing out on convention center opportunities. We have lost about 90 opportunities over the past 5 years for such large conventions that we could not pursue, mainly because we don't have enough exhibit hall space in our convention center. Those 90 conventions would have brought about 450,000 visitors to our community that would have spent over $700 million. So not only are we losing out on that opportunity, we're losing out on that visitation, because with visitation, when they come to San Antonio, they find out we're an amazing, culturally rich community, and they want to come back. We also know that our Alamo Dome is kind of a dinosaur, and we need to improve it. It requires significant improvements, and we recently found out about a year ago that NCAA is not going to be doing any more Final Fours in San Antonio beyond their commitment for Women's Final Four in 2029. And the reason for that is that our facility is too old, and they're looking to go into newer facilities that have the premium seating and public space opportunities that they're looking for. We also know that we need more convention center rooms. We need hotels that can provide us blocks for these large conventions. We have such an amazing problem in San Antonio, and it's that we have convention center business and then we have leisure travel. We are a family destination, and sometimes our large hotels, they can make more money if they sell a room to a family versus doing a block room for a convention. So we don't want to be cannibalizing on each other. We want to make sure that we have enough hotel rooms for both markets. And then finally, a new arena in downtown San Antonio within a sports entertainment district would elevate that fan and team experience, connecting both to an activated district full of amenities within a quarter-mile walk. And I think we're all Spurs fans in this room. I think the majority of our community is Spurs fans. If we had a home within a sports entertainment district for our Spurs, just the energy and the community, it would be amazing. Now, what have we done? We have done a lot. We have worked on our property acquisition. We approached Taylor Amy about getting a right of first refusal for their property that they own in Hemisphere. We have that executed MOU. We have initiated discussions with the General Service Administration about acquiring their property that they own within Hemisphere, which is the federal building and the surrounding lots. We also, with everyone's help on the dais, established legislation referred to as Senate Bill 2220 that provided the city access to create a project finance zone. This is similar to what Dallas has and how they funded some of their convention center facilities. So what is a project finance zone? A project finance zone is a zone that takes a 3-mile radius from a center of a specific facility, draws that boundary, and all the hotels within that 3-mile radius of that facility, we can capture the incremental state hotel occupancy tax, which is 6%, and the incremental state sales tax from retail within those hotels, which is another 6%. That is a major tool. And City Council, once we got that established at the state level, City Council went forward in December and created 2 project finance zones, one for the Alamo Dome and one for the Convention Center. We also secured a planning grant of about $3 million from the U.S. Department of Transportation to initiate planning efforts to come up with solutions to connect the Near East Side to downtown. And so what that could do is it could really, fix the wrong that was made by the highway going through and dividing the community. And we can do that both at the street level and an elevated level. But it needs to connect the community, and then an additional benefit could be for the sports entertainment facilities. And then finally, consultants. It is a lot of work to get to where we are today, and we couldn't do it alone. We brought on Populous for our master planning. Populous is the group that did the Alamo Dome design 30 years ago, and they've done the improvements over the past several years. We also used Populous on our convention center expansion. So we had a team that knew our area that came in and hit the ground running. We also brought in Pape Dawson. Pape Dawson is one of our engineers. They have the traffic model for San Antonio, brought them in to do that important infrastructure and traffic modeling. We brought in CSL to do our financing projections as well as feasibility studies for each of our facilities, and then RLB to help us with cost estimating. All of this work is necessary to help us determine the feasibility for this sports entertainment district and figure out how we can fund it. So what are we doing now? So we've done a lot, what's been going on for the past year or so. We've been doing site planning. We've been doing concept planning. We are working on a funding plan for the entire sports entertainment district, and we are doing market feasibility studies for each of those items: the convention center, the Alamo Dome, the headquarters hotel, the retail and mixed-use opportunities, infrastructure, new concerts and event venue, and then an arena. So first, the site plan. Anyone that does development, they'll tell you this is really a perfect scenario when you have a site that has 3 public partners and they're all working together. We have the City of San Antonio, which owns the land, the majority of the land, probably about 80%. You also have the General Service Administration of the U.S. government that controls the federal building and the surrounding lots. And then finally, the Hemisphere UTSA site that is controlled by UT Regents. But as I mentioned before, what is an entertainment district? And I want to stress first that if you look at this slide, you'll see there are 5 neighborhoods surrounding this area. We cannot forget that this is in the middle of neighborhoods. And so the foundation for this plan is about community. So you have the 5 neighborhoods, and then we are going to anchor this park with public space. Just like the mission and vision in the Hemisphere Master Plan that Council adopted, it identified 3 distinct parks that are continuously activated, and they're surrounded by compatible development. We are going to do just that. We are going to continue the implementation of the Hemisphere Master Plan, and we have 3 parks that were identified in that plan. The first one, Yanaguana, started in 2015. Hugely successful. We have all community members from different council districts going to that park. We also have the Civic Park. Phase 1 opened in October 2023, and Phase 2 will open in February of 2025. The Tower Park is the 3rd park in the master plan, and we hope to start preliminary design work in the next year. We also have an opportunity with the Riverwalk. The Riverwalk, the Convention Center, and Hemisphere currently converge at a point, but you really wouldn't know it. So how can we enhance those connections and bring them up into the park? And then finally, the East Side Connector. This would be a huge opportunity for us to reconnect to the East Side, providing street level connection and elevated connection. So we have those 5 community spaces, and then on top of those are going to be our anchor entertainment facilities. So we have the Henry B. Gonzalez Convention Center. We also have the proposed Convention Center Hotel with the UTSA School of Hospitality. If you're wondering where that is going to be on the proposed, or that is on the SAWS chiller plant that's currently operating. We, of course, would have to relocate the chiller plant to a different site. We are looking at, of course, the Alamo Dome, how we reimagine that facility, and then, of course, the arena and the event venue. The third ingredient in the sports entertainment district is potential mixed-use opportunities. And so those would be public-private partnerships that we initiate with the development community and also the community itself. What do they want to see in each of these spaces? We have about 62 acres, and that includes the federal property. It also includes property around the proposed arena site, and then, of course, the parking lots that are currently at the Alamo Dome. And then last but not least, what makes Hemisphere and San Antonio special is our authenticity. So we need to continue the community events that are currently in Hemisphere and give them an opportunity to expand and grow. So we have Jazz Alive, we have Diwali, we have Muertos Fest, and then what's also special about San Antonio is our public art and our local artists, making sure they have opportunities to be able to partner and do work within the district. And then finally, small business. You go to Hemisphere today, it has small businesses, the Paleteria, Dough, and other small business opportunities sprinkled throughout that site. Want to make sure that we continue that field because that is why San Antonio is such a tourist destination. We are authentic. That's what sets us apart from Dallas and Houston. So, feasibility. Each of these anchors needs to have a feasibility study to, one, tell us really what do we need to do, can the market support it, and then identify the spaces that need to be improved so we can develop cost estimating. So the first is the convention center, and this feasibility study is the furthest along. We're about 75% complete, and what we're asking CSL to do is identify market supportable space needs. That includes where should we grow, by how much, and what areas should grow. We also need to benchmark facilities in Texas, which we have done, in looking at other cities globally. We need to introduce spaces that are new, that include amenities and technology that will cater to future convention center attendees, and then develop industry concepts that protect market share and allow us to protect future market growth. We plan on returning to City Council on December 4th in a B session to present this full study to you, because we want to make sure that you feel comfortable with what the study says before we come back to you with a funding plan for this anchor. This is the program overview that we're looking at. So where would the convention center expansion occur? We want to make sure that we place it somewhere that we don't have to take down our convention center. So placing it somewhere that allows the convention center to continue operate and then us to grow. So this is on the area where you're all familiar with the Lone Star Room. It's at that river level. It's where the Hemisphere Convention Center and the river meet. We would put meeting room space at the river level, do exhibit hall space on top, and right now we have about 500,000 square feet of exhibit hall space. Want to grow by about 150,000 square feet. That will allow us to get the international car shows, large vendor opportunities, and then also divide the space where we can have multiple events going on at the same time. And then, of course, ballroom space. Want another Stars Over Texas ballroom. Sometimes when you use that ballroom, it takes 2 nights, one for setup and then one for the actual event. If we're able to have another ballroom, you could have an event 365 days a year going on in the convention center. So really maximizing that space and becoming a more attractive option for conventions. Now, the convention center hotel. Our market study needed to look at how many rooms, what types of meeting space, how many parking spaces, how many square feet of food and beverage, where should the UTSA School of Hospitality go, and other community amenities. I did mention that we are looking at putting this hotel on the SAWS chiller plant. And so what would that require? It would require us to build, in partnership with SAWS, a brand new chiller plant. That chiller plant would be a couple blocks north of the existing one, because we want that chiller plant to, one, service Hemisphere, service the proposed sports entertainment district, and also have more capacity to service growth going on in the downtown area, specifically that north side. So we are working closely with SAWS on that and looking at how we can expand their capacity, but also use the current site as an economic generator. Our program overview of this hotel is another 1,000 rooms. So we have the Grand Hyatt. This will be an addition to the Grand Hyatt. We'll have an additional 1,000 rooms. We don't know who would operate that. That would have to go through a process. But 1,000 keys, 50,000 square feet of ballroom and meeting space, 26,000 square feet of food and beverage or retail, 20,000 square feet for the School of Hospitality, and 1,040 parking spaces. Now the Alamo Dome. I'm not sure if people know that the Alamo Dome is the largest indoor concert venue we have in South Texas. We have 65,000 seats. With those 65,000 seats, we are able to attract large acts like Bad Bunny. I know several of you all were there and you saw the energy. And what was interesting about that there was only a small majority of those individuals in that room that were from Bexar County. The majority were from South Texas, throughout the U.S. and Mexico. So we've really established ourselves as the venue that can capture that South Texas and Mexico market. We are also the third largest venue behind AT&T Center in Dallas and NRG Stadium in Houston. So we need to really improve this facility so we can continue to have that foothold in South Texas. Now, we also need to hear from you today is what do we want to be when we grow up? What are the next 30 years for the Alamo Dome? Do we want to continue concerts? We could do that right now. We would need to do some major improvements. Do we want to do consumer events? We can do that right now, just with some major improvements. Also UTSA football, it works great in the Alamo Dome. But if we want to continue to use the Alamo Dome for Final Fours, for college football playoffs, or large events like international soccer, that's a different scope of work. And I hope to hear from you all today if that's something you would like us to look at. Just for information purposes, the men's Final Four coming here April 4th through 7th, we expect that to be a $250 million return to our community. So these large events do provide a large return. Now we also need to look at our premium opportunities, suites, technology, VIP seating, club space, lounge space. Those are all the things that you're seeing in the newer arenas coming online. Next, an entertainment venue. Something that we learned through the Alamo Dome feasibility study is that there are a lot of uses in the Alamo Dome that are for attendees of 6,000 or less. About 45 days are used for that type of attendance. The Alamo Dome is 65,000 seats. It's very expensive to turn the lights on. And so what we thought is let's create a new venue that can accommodate that type of market so we don't put that stress on the Alamo Dome and we can sell those nights to larger acts. So we're looking at converting the John Woods Courthouse into a 5,000 seat event venue. And what we could do is enhance the courthouse, which is historic. It's a round concrete building with no windows. There's not a lot of uses that can go in there, but this type of venue. We know that we cannot demolish it. There's a deed restriction on the property when we acquired it from the feds. And so 5,000 seats that can be removed. It can be another event space for conventions. They do like to come outside of the center sometimes, and this would be a space that's adjacent to Migrant Plaza that has been activated more and more over the past couple years. And so doing something like this would accommodate 5,000 seats for a mid-sized concert. Right now, within the proposed district, you have 65,000 seats, maybe 18 to 20,000 seats in a proposed arena. You have the Lila Cockerel with around 3,000. You have Majestic with around 2,500. And so we could really do a large music event in San Antonio, not to mention all the public space. So this would be a huge generator for San Antonio, and we don't think it needs to be funded entirely by the public. A retail and mixed use, this is something else we want to hear from the community, and of course you and our market studies. What type of retail can be supported in this district? So is it residential? Is it parking? Is it restaurants? Is it sports entertainment retail? Is it office, institutional, or hotel? Those are the types of uses we need to know, and that also it's going to depend on what the markets can support. And then infrastructure. This is the thing that can make or break this project. So how do we make sure that the traffic flows when you have large events. So we are running models on what happens when the Alamo Dome is completely sold out. What happens when the Alamo Dome is dark but the arena is sold out? What happens when both are sold out? What happens when both are sold out and you have Muertos Fest? We are thinking big. This is going to require a lot of improvements to the interstate. Think having ramps connecting you directly to parking facilities versus having people go to the street level and using the local streets to find parking. So those are the types of things we are looking at to make sure we minimize that disruption to the neighborhood. Also looking at parking that's strategically placed, not just within the district, but within a quarter-mile radius. We already have about 10 to 15,000 parking spaces within this area with the River Center Mall, some of the hotels, and some of the offices. We'll need, probably 10,000 more. Where does that go? And where do we place it? And what type of public-private partnerships can we do to make sure that happens? We also have the East Side Connector. We have the Tower Park. We have interior and exterior road improvements. We have utilities. A lot of infrastructure will be necessary to support the sports entertainment district. And that's not just city infrastructure. It could be SAWS infrastructure, TxDOT infrastructure, federal highway infrastructure. So there's a lot of pieces in this. And then finally, a Spurs Arena. There's no doubt in my mind that a Spurs Arena wouldn't transform our community. It would be huge to have a Spurs Arena in downtown in the San Antonio Sports Entertainment District. And you just can't dump an arena on that space without doing the Sports Entertainment District. It's all of these parts combined that make the energy that we want to see in San Antonio that will bring our locals to downtown. And what do locals do? They bring visitors because locals create that authenticity with the retail and the art and the community events. So, how do we fund it? I know that's on everybody's mind. And so the answer is we don't know yet, and we're looking for direction from council on that. So we have several potential funding sources. Some are not city controlled, but here's a list. We have private sector, and this is for the entire sports entertainment district, not just the arena or different components. So you have the private sector, Spurs, private equity, philanthropy, tax credits, naming rights. That's just a couple. And we also have hotel and rental car users. So you have the county venue tax. They completely control that, but that tax is fed by rental car users. That could be a potential source, but that is up to the county. We also have our project finance zone, Senate Bill 2220. Council established 2 zones in December of 2023 and identified 2 eligible projects. And that was the Alamo Dome and the Convention Center. So we already have some funding sources dedicated to some of those anchors, but there's nothing that could preclude us from adding another eligible project, like an arena, within this, these zones. Now, something about these zones is they're completely funded through state incremental hotel occupancy tax and state incremental sales tax. So it's not city funding, it is funding that users of hotels and rental cars pay, and the state would reimburse us that would go into this fund to help us fund these improvements. And then, of course, our city hotel occupancy tax. Those are potential sources. We also have developers, lease revenue. We have the public improvement district, tax increment financing, or municipal management districts. The general taxpayer, we don't anticipate that the general taxpayer will pay for anything associated with the sports entertainment district other than infrastructure to support the entire sports entertainment district. And if that happens, that would go to the voters for their consideration. Now, I also want to stress that the arena will not be funded by the general taxpayers. We want to make sure that the only thing that the general taxpayers pay for is that infrastructure. And so something that we want to make sure we say up front and clear, that this will be funded through multiple funding sources, that the arena will not be funded by the general taxpayer of San Antonio, but the sports entertainment district infrastructure may, similar to what we do today. And that is when we go for projects for Hemisphere. You have interior roads, exterior roads, you have park improvements. We also have neighborhood improvements we need to do. So those types of things could be funded, and they would have to go to the voters for their consideration. The same with the county venue tax. They would have to call the election, and that would go to the voters. And then finally, you have visitors to the district that could pay for parking, and that could help fund some of this, and then also other opportunities with state and federal grants. So what is our timeline? We are being very aggressive, but you see everything in that bluish green color, teal. Years 1 to 5, we anticipate those projects will either be complete or under construction. So that includes the hotel and UTSA School for Hospitality, the Convention Center, the Tower Park, the P3 opportunities with the John Woods Courthouse and the federal properties, and the arena and the development surrounding it. We want to be able to say that we have something, and specifically a convention center, the Tower Park, and a Spurs arena by 2030. We believe that's a reasonable time frame, and we've talked to Populous and our other consultants, and we think that can happen. But it depends on the funding sources when they flow in, and also other multiple items such as sequencing. You also have years 5 through 15, and that is the Alamo Dome and the surrounding lots. The reason for that is we made a commitment to the NCAA that we would host Women's Final Four in 2029. We need to keep that commitment. So we can't work on the Alamo Dome until after that commitment. We can be doing design work and then start shortly after, but then you also have sequencing that may be able to be resolved, but you need staging for the Alamo Dome construction. And so those sites may not be able to go under construction until the Alamo Dome is complete. And then if we were to do all of this, this would put us on the national, international map. There would be no other city in the U.S. that would have this density of these types of event venues and sport opportunities and community space. We could go after Final Fours. We could go after men's and women on the same weekend. We have enough facilities to accommodate that. We also have enough park space and hotels. We could go after the NBA All-Star Games. We could go after international soccer. We could go after large music festivals. We can't do that today, and well, we could do that with the implementation of this district. So here's a complicated timeline to show you that this is layered and complex, and you could probably, hopefully zoom in to see that, but it really shows you each of the design phases and construction phases for each of these anchors, and it extends beyond 2035 right now. Now, we have not done any design. We're not even a preliminary design. That all may change once we bring in more consultants to look at this. But what are our next steps? We need to start the community and stakeholder engagement. So I'm ready to meet with the neighborhoods. I'm already getting appointments on their schedules so I can start presenting in December, January. I'm going to be meeting with the general community, several community stakeholders. They might be large meetings, small meetings, working with Hemisphere, H Park, and the Hemisphere users, because this is a community space. We need to retain that feel. We also have anchor partners. So you have the Convention Center. Its partners are Visit San Antonio, CSEF, and the hotels. So those are major stakeholders. So what do they want to see? But also the general public. The same for each of those anchors that you saw in that timeline. They all have their own community engagement process and their own construction and design schedule. We need to continue the feasibility and cost estimating. So as I mentioned earlier, we're only at 75%. For the Convention Center, we should be complete with a draft and be able to come to you December 4th with that full presentation. And then as feasibility studies are complete, we will come back to council for that briefing. Once we have those feasibility studies, then we can talk about funding. And we have to develop a funding plan for the acquisition of the UTSA property and GSA property. We need to do a funding analysis for this entire district plus the individual components. Contractor engagement. I'll be working with AIA San Antonio and ULI to do a contractor open house so they understand that each of these components has its own procurement process and they will all have an opportunity to participate in this exciting project. And then we need to solicit a program manager. I cannot do this. H Park can't do it. The Spurs can't do it. We need to make sure that we have the right entity to control this and that they hire a program manager similar to what you see at the airport. And then moving forward, we're going to continue working and doing our due diligence on a sports entertainment district. We want to hear from you today. Do you like what you see? Do you want us to keep going? We are going to establish an MOU, a framework with the city, the county, and the Spurs to support the vision between each of our partners, and that vision is for both the Sports and Entertainment District as well as the Frost Center and the surrounding area. We need to support each other, and there is going to be opportunities for us each to partner on each of our priorities. And then we need to develop a funding plan for the Spurs Arena in coordination with the Spurs and the county that includes multiple funding sources, but will include a city funding source. We want to make sure that we hear your feedback today on that. And then I would really like to hear your feedback on the Alamo Dome and several of the other feasibility studies that we presented. Now, here's a beautiful picture. This is a rendering only, no design has been done, but this is kind of give you an idea of what it could look like. But we want to share a video that we've had produced to really give you all an idea of what the Sports Entertainment District is, as well as the community. So David, if you could go ahead and cue that video.
San Antonio is the heart of Texas, but the soul comes from its people. It is time to showcase the rich history and diverse cultural heritage of San Antonio on a global scale. Time to usher in the next generation of sports, technology, and entertainment in Texas. Imagine the activation of 4 community parks, woven through some of the most iconic buildings in San Antonio. An immersive, free, and accessible experience, allowing visitors and locals to connect with the culture of our community. A connection that will reknit the city fabric and bring communities together. A vibrant urban development that combines entertainment, dining, retail, and residential space into a world-class destination, all with our San Antonio charm. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to give our fans, visitors, and most importantly, our community members, an experience that will live on for generations. No city in the country can offer the range of experiences and opportunities in one place. From the Final Four, college football playoffs, and the World Cup, to beloved local events such as Dia de los Muertos and Fiesta. Let this be the catalyst to draw our next generations together and transform the future of San Antonio.
Eric, myself, Andy, and Ben are available to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you very much, Lori. A comprehensive, inspired, albeit complex vision. And I'm reflecting on the fact that we always talk about San Antonio's secret strength being collaboration. And I would say it's a vision achievable in a city of San Antonio because of that kind of collaboration and teamwork. So. With that, excellent presentation. We'll get now to council discussion. We'll start with Councilmember Alderete Gavito.
Thank you, Mayor. Lori, that was a great presentation. Thanks so much. I see so many strong community leaders here with us today, so thank you so much for attending as a show of support for this exciting presentation. For years, the city has been working on revitalizing downtown and drawing people to the heart of our city. This plan, if executed properly, can be an important step towards realizing that vision. The most crucial part of the plan to me is the economic impact it will have on our city, where we have such a high poverty rate. Looking at slide 4, we can see some of the economic impacts this plan will have on our community. The conventions, the other item I'm excited about is that conventions bring a ton of business to the city, and we're missing out on a lot of opportunities because of the convention center's limitations. So I'm glad that the convention center is one of the first items being studied. The other item I'm especially interested in is the possibility of a new Spurs arena. No one can deny that we love our Spurs in San Antonio. They're essential to our culture here. So I hear some concerns from residents about relocating the Spurs arena, and I say to that, we need to ensure that the franchise has what it needs to grow and remain one of the best sports franchises in the country. That being said, I do want to clarify, Lori, funding for the arena will come from a combination of state visitor tax, hotel occupancy tax, and car rental tax. Is that correct?
So what I can share is that We don't know where funding for the arena could come from. That slide that I shared was potential funding sources. Now, what we would, the funding sources you identified that could be used for the arena, it could be a combination of several, but one that comes to mind is the project finance zone. Senate Bill 2220, City Council already established 2 zones around the Convention Center and the Alamo Dome. We could, if council chooses, add the arena as an eligible project for that project finance zone. So that's one way. The county venue tax, that's the county's, and if they choose so, they can do that, and they would bring that to the voters. And then there could be potentially be tax increment financing and other revenue that could contribute to it. We will not bring the arena to the voters. There will be no general taxpayer dollars going towards the arena. The funding sources that the city is looking at would be the TIF, as well as the Senate Bill 2220 and others that are identified, but not on the backs of city taxpayers.
So then residents wouldn't be funding the arena unless they're staying in hotels or renting cars. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And Councilwoman, let me add that that's the last slide of the presentation. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we're recommending we develop an MOU with the county and the Spurs, and then jointly work on what are those funding plan options. Those are all going to be critical, and there's probably a number of different ways you can slice it. But number one, that's important from the engagement standpoint from the community. But number two, from a structure standpoint, I mean, we're strongly recommending we develop that framework to be able to provide some guidance.
Yeah, absolutely, because I know that when we go to our neighborhood meetings, our residents are going to ask us these tough questions, and there's a lot to be excited about in this presentation, but we also need to make sure that we have the talking points to answer to our residents on how this won't impact the general fund, on how, unless they're renting a car or staying in a hotel, then they could potentially be impacted. I think that that's going to be extremely important for us to make sure that we have that information when we go back out. The last point I want to bring up is that we need to make sure that we involve VIA in the discussion and incorporate Park and Ride. We hear so much from residents, their concern, and how much they avoid coming downtown because parking is difficult, you know? And so there's going to be a lot of attraction with this new plan, and so we just need to make sure that we have a good partnership with VIA and a good transportation plan to go with it, so that way we can all get down here together. I mean, looking at this plan, it's exciting, but imagining events, games, all of that kind of stuff, and we all know what it's like to be stuck in downtown traffic.
Thank you, and that is a priority. That is the one thing that can make or break this if we don't do it right. And parking, that is something that I've heard from you many times, that your community doesn't like to come downtown. So we need to make sure that parking is easy to access, it is affordable, and easy to find. And so that is also a priority within this plan. I have had conversations with VIA, talking about how we can partner on Park and Ride, also working with their Green Line as an opportunity, and then other multimodal and other scenarios that we might have that VIA can partner with us. VIA also owns some property immediately north of the Alamo Dome with the Robert Thompson Center, and so what can they do to that space to make sure it's part of this overall district?
Awesome. Sounds good. Well, I like what I see today, and I'm looking forward to continuing the conversation. That's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Alderete Gavito. Councilmember Rocha Garcia.
Thank you, Mayor, and Lori, thank you so much for the presentation, and Ben, and to everybody here. There's just so many of you to name by name right now. I also wanted to geek out and say that whoever named Project Marvel just made my day, because it was the only time that I could bring my Captain Marvel jacket to council. And so anyway, about a year ago, I wrote a commentary in the San Antonio Express News about how the time is now for a downtown stadium district. And it was inspired because last September, I took my son on an extended weekend getaway. He works for a senior center, and sometimes he's a little stressed about what he sees And so I took him to back-to-back Major League sports games in Seattle. It began with a Seahawks game on Sunday. We went to a Kraken game, although I don't think we could ever get an HL in San Antonio for the record, and a Mariners game on Tuesday. And I'm not alone in my love for sports. Our city has united incredibly around the Roadrunners and UTSA. We see the excitement that it brought as we were recovering from the COVID pandemic. We love going honking downtown when our Spurs win. We want to do that more often. We want more championship river parades. We celebrate everything with a river parade. That includes a lot of our sports teams, our collegiate sports teams as well. By the way, shout out to Olu's volleyball team who is on their way to make history as well. But as these celebratory memories that all happened to occur, by the way, in the heart of our city, it led me to think of what we could do to make sure that we envision a future for our kids. I thought about it, and to hang our hopes just on a sports entertainment district would be short-sighted. So I wrote that we should come together to build an entertainment district that connects our community's strengths, leverages our cultural assets, such as the iconic Missions, the only UNESCO World Heritage Site in Texas, Hemisphere, and our unique designation as a UNESCO Creative City of Gastronomy. You also saw what our chefs did just a while ago, bringing together everything that they could to showcase their culinary talent to the world. And where better to build that than at the heart of our city? We're a walkable city. I hear that time and time again as I travel. The new Alamo Plaza, development in the surrounding areas, and downtown street improvements would connect us to that walkable entertainment district that links us to the Riverwalk. We've already invested significantly in our downtown infrastructure through multiple bond projects. We may have to continue to invest some public dollars, but there's no doubt in my mind that we also need private capital. And here's where I think San Antonio has a unique value, especially as we position ourselves to become the leader on economic development in partnership with other cities across South Texas. I see the possibility of businesses from South Texas adopting San Antonio as their home team. There's an estimated 10 million people living in the emerging transnational mega region that makes up the South Texas Triangle. It gives me confidence, great confidence. And I'm looking forward to you all partnering with the South Texas Business Partnership, who has been doing an incredible job. And Mayor Nirenberg has been working with mayors across South Texas. This is the time to leverage that. But why stop there? When we can expand our long existing ties with Guadalajara, with Mexico City, with our international sports designation, which we know travels well. And why not partner with the Hispanic Chamber with all of the work that they have done there? Those international companies need to showcase things to their own market. And we already have the momentum, by the way, with Wemby here. So the time to me is to leverage it now. Let's have something like a borough market that is surrounded by this entertainment area. Let's have our small businesses partake and participate and take advantage of the business that we will be bringing. Let's set up a place for our small businesses to rotate and showcase what they have to offer. But let's be thoughtful, purposeful, and visionary about it. Let's be thoughtful with community input to redevelop the Frost Bank Center and not leave anything behind. Let's be purposeful with sharing our culture with our visitors. Let's be visionary by shaping the future. As a professor, I'm so excited that UTSA is partnering up on a School of Hospitality. As a matter of fact, when I got on council 5 years ago, I talked to Mr. Carrizales, shout out to Mr. C, and I asked, why can't we have a School of Tourism and Hospitality at UTSA? Why can't we turn the ITC into a School of Hospitality? A year later, the mayor appointed me to visit San Antonio. As a member of Visit San Antonio, I hear regularly about the missed opportunities that our city has missed because we don't have the resources necessary to secure some of these larger conventions, and I hate losing business to Austin. As president of the San Antonio Housing Trust, I ask that we involve the Housing Trust and any other partners in the opportunity to be proactive about any displacement that can occur as a result of what we decide as a council and as a city. And selfishly, Lori, you asked about any plans for the Alamo Dome. I've said it a couple of times, but Climate Pledge Arena in Seattle has been a great example for reuse and adaptability. So my shameless plug for if you haven't visited that arena, that is the arena of the future, and that is what San Antonio should be looking to do. So I'm looking forward to more discussion, but I know that it's the residents that are not here today that should be the ones that have the most say. And I'm looking forward to what my colleagues will say. I invite you to leverage all of us. Everybody has unique strengths, and they have the ability to bring the community together to really make this a reality, and more importantly, where everybody wins. So thank you to the entire team. Looking forward to continued discussions. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. Councilman Palais?
Thank you. Lori, that presentation was pretty spectacular. It's one of your best, and blew my socks off. You can't see it from here, but it also blew Taylor Amy's socks off. Literally, right, Taylor? I got to ask you, one thing stood out. You asked the question, do you like what you see, right? And do you want us to keep going, right? I challenge people to ask the exact same question about the east side of Hemisphere right now, right? And the Alamo Dome. Do you like what you see? And would you like to see something better, right? I have yet to meet anybody out there who says, I love what I'm seeing on the east side of Hemisphere Park, right? And to me, it looks blighted. And our city center deserves better. Our Alamo Dome area deserves better. I'm a true believer in this opportunity to create some transformational change here. And there's two people I want to make sure that we not overlook, right? One of them is State Rep Barbara Gerben Hawkins. The other one is Senator Menendez. Both of them fought tooth and nail to pass the legislation needed in order to accomplish an expansion of our convention center and to be able to pull some of this off. None of this can be done without them. And there will be a day where everybody in San Antonio stands in front of this new project and pats themselves on the back and said, I brought this to San Antonio. Not true, right? It was Menendez and it was Gerben Hawkins who made this all possible, and they deserve an enormous debt of gratitude. I believe that the city can walk and chew gum at the same time. I think that we should walk and chew gum at the same time, and I think we must do that, right? We can address housing, we can address poverty, we can address traffic, we can address gentrification, and we can also have nice things. And we can accomplish some big, bold, visionary things like what was presented to us today. And so, we always, when any city has this discussion, there's going to be a lot of journalists and a lot of naysayers out there that, that trot out this tired narrative, right? And then for some reason, we're always really rather allergic to push back on this narrative, right? But there's some flawed assumptions, and those assumptions in that narrative always revolves around two things. One, every economist says that this doesn't pay off for cities, right? That when public spending is involved, it never produces a dollar for dollar ROI that favors the taxpayer. And the second thing they always say is that stadium deals that include some kind of public investment really are just a transfer of public dollars to the pockets of billionaires and millionaires. It's not true. And there's some very inconvenient facts that many of the journalists, op-ed writers, and naysayers deliberately choose to not include, right? Because they're inconvenient to that narrative, right? One of them is that when placed in a city center, a stadium in which you already have a winning team, brings about an important resurgence of that downtown, right? And it brings about a resurgence driven by locals who finally come back to their downtown to enjoy new food and beverage options, right? To enjoy, the different activities outside of that stadium. It benefits always hotel revenue per available room, the RevPAR that everybody talks about. It increases the number of people staying in your hotels, right? It increases tax revenue every time for school districts. It increases it increases infrastructure. And what you were talking, Lori, and I'll repeat it again, and people are going to conveniently choose to forget this part, right? We're not proposing, and I have not heard a proposal, that tax dollars go to pay for brick and mortar of a stadium. What I heard you say is that the proposal is that the city upgrade infrastructure to benefit a whole bunch of different projects, including the John Wood, soon-to-be concert facility, a major hotel with a UTSA component to it, and all the different benefits to the Hemisphere Park experience and our convention center and our Alamo. And then the streets and the sewer and the drainage that come with that. I think that's really important. I think that part of town deserves a very important investment in infrastructure, and I think that's very mindful. It increases traffic, walking traffic, right? Pedestrian traffic to and around the district to benefit local businesses. And then there's the intangibles, but they're super important, right? When Jenna Saucedo's team and I were in Korea, and when we've traveled to Darmstadt, when we've gone to Mexico, when we go to Japan, when we go to all these different countries, you know what they want to talk about? They want to talk about Wemby. They want to talk about Popovich. They want to talk about Manu, and they want to talk about, Tim Duncan. And that's not unimportant. That's huge, right? Because it's an opening to have a conversation about them moving to a city that features those greats and that brand. That should not be discounted, right? The reputational win is enormous by having the Spurs here in San Antonio. It also, I think, adds to the love and the pride that people have in their city. It's how many times have you just drive around San Antonio, and the number of people that are wearing jerseys, short sleeve tank top jerseys while it's cold outside, is not surprising because of how much love they have for this team. That has an intangible, incalculable value, right? That should not be discounted. There's really only 3 brands in the city that I think that are beloved. Right. One of them is the Spurs. The other one is H-E-B, and then the third one is Chief McManus. And there's that brand value for the city, and the way it makes my constituents feel is not unimportant and shouldn't be dismissed. And then what is the dollar value, right? The dollar value of the experience for grandparents to take their grandchildren to go see the great Spurs play, right? To be able to wear that jersey, to have a day at Hemisphere. What is that worth, right? Because Councilwoman Rocha Garcia was talking about the experience, capital E experience, right? San Antonians deserve those spectacular, memorable, forever memories. And I think that we've missed the mark. I really do. I think we missed the mark by not having that stadium and all these amenities downtown a long, long time ago. And so I also think that people ignore the fact that this is going to require thousands of people from the trades, welders, electricians, plumbers, masons. That's a good thing. And then there's the multiplier effect, right? We know that, Brooks, for example, had a 4x multiplier effect at one time. Toyota had a 5x multiplier effect, and today they're much, much higher. There's nobody out there that can contest that this won't have a similar impressive multiplier effect, because they always do. So I do, however, recognize the arguments, and they're important, right, against having some kind of investment by the city. And so, Eric, what I'd like to do is to see and challenge everybody in the room to do some things that other cities haven't done. I won't vote for a deal unless it includes a community benefit agreement with the nonprofits here in town and with community advocates. That has to be done. I won't also entertain a deal that doesn't include a mandatory competitive minimum wage at the stadium, and including the janitors and everybody who works there, right? That has to be a stadium for San Antonians, operated by San Antonians, and it has to be dignified, well-paid work. And then lastly, I'll tell you, I do want to have a conversation at some point that this is not just a deal about pride and experiences and amenities and infrastructure, but these sports teams, they make a lot of money from broadcast and licensing revenue, and I'd like Lori to have a conversation about whether or not the city of San Antonio, if it's going to invest in this, deserves to be a participant the way other investors would be in broadcasting and licensing. And so what I envision, and I think it's what everybody here envisions, is a downtown that belongs to San Antonians as much as it belongs to the tourists. And for way too long, we've been designing downtown just for tourists, and we're so proud of all the tourists that come here, and that's really important. But I do hear from my constituents, they want their downtown to be their downtown again. And I think that the Mission Stadium was an important step in that direction. I think that this concert venue at John Woods, the stadium, the hotels, the convention center, the Alamo, I think that returns downtown in large part to my constituents. And so I will unequivocally say right now, I do think that the city of San Antonio needs to participate in some kind of financial way to the development of what you presented today, Lori. And that's not a position that I'll waver from. You have my support.
Thank you, Councilmember Pelaez. Councilmember Cabello-Haverda.
Thank you, Mayor. Lori, the short answer to your question about moving forward is yes. I'm 100% in support of furthering the exploration, moving forward with ideas for this. Today, council has been about big thinking. This morning, we had these great culinary masters that are about to be in our airport, and now this incredible briefing. I think this is a start of what I expect will be an ambitious and I believe very inclusive conversation from the group about the future of San Antonio and downtown San Antonio, but really our entire city. And it's we talk a lot about transformational vision, but I think real vision like that will uplift us all. So I think we have to get it right, and we must be responsive to our community's input and their questions. Projects of this scale don't just change the skyline, as I mentioned, they change our entire city. And I do think that how we live and work and connect as a city is all tied to this. So with big ambition, we have big responsibilities, and especially to our community. We're talking about significant investment and major impacts on downtown residents, businesses, and others, even our visitors. Hopefully there'll be more of them. I do want to see where this can go, and I do ask you to explore the possibilities with some concepts in mind as you move forward, and I'm going to be pretty specific. I think that all successful districts like this have mass transit factored in, and so I know you mentioned it, Lori, but I think that's going to be crucial to the success of this district. How this development is going to affect nearby neighborhoods, and I don't leave out the east side on this, where we're coming from, particularly those in historically underrepresented neighborhoods. And we want to make sure that as we plan forward, we're ensuring that residents aren't, of course, displaced or left behind as the district evolves. And how transparent this is going to be. I know there's a lot of studies that are going to be completed, and but I want to make sure that we're keeping the community informed and engaged. It's easy to kind of come in at the beginning and then come at the end with community. Well, I won't say it's easy. It's not easy. It's difficult. But I think it's more difficult to keep them engaged during the process, and I think that's going to be really important. And then how we're looking at long-term economic benefits, not just in terms of jobs and tourism dollars, but also ensuring that local businesses are thriving. And I don't just mean in the district. I mean, it's going to have a broader impact. So how it's going to impact the small business ecosystem as a whole, I think, is important to consider. These conversations can be very uncomfortable, and I think, that's growth, right? There's growing pains. But I acknowledge that what's uncomfortable for some means quality of life for others. So I think that's why these conversations are so important. And I do expect that the feasibility briefing will be shed light on how this project fits into our broader goals for us to continue to be thriving and inclusive and resilient San Antonio. Until then, until we get that briefing, I hope that this can be a transformative project and it's done right. including the entire community. And I want to be clear about that. We do want to talk to nonprofits and advocates, but we need to go to where the residents are. One in each quadrant or one in each district, whatever it is, not just one, some in each district. But we can't expect the residents to come to us. They're working, they're raising families. We have to go to them as much as possible. So as much as we can do that, I think that's going to be crucial as well. So with all that in mind, I say go figure it out. With work this out for the future of our great city. I want to look back in 10 years at this hometown of mine that I love so much, and I want to see a downtown that's on par with any great city in the world. I think we are just on the cusp of that in so many ways with our city, and I think this is a part of the key to that. So I'm very excited about it, and I want us to see it. I wanted to see it lift us all as a city up. So thank you. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Cabello-Haverda. Councilmember White.
Thanks, Mayor. Lori, Ben, Eric, everybody that's worked on this, thank you so much for it. Dream it big. Dream it big. My staff is tired of me saying it. We talk about it every week. Dream it big. That's what our city needs to do. And this potential project, this is big. Our city is already great. Our citizens, though, they demand that we should continue to strive to be even better than we are. We have hardworking people, fantastic food, and a culture that is special and unique. And moving forward, we now have an opportunity to create a unique district in our city that really doesn't exist anywhere else around the country. We shouldn't make any mistake about it. This is transformational. The Riverwalk is already iconic, and connecting that with Hemisphere Park, a reimagined Alamo Dome, convention center, new hotels, and yes, bringing the Spurs back downtown where they belong is something that I believe, if done properly, this city will be proud of. And when we talk about the Spurs, so often people say, or people think about who can and who attends the games, but the Spurs are not just about the team on the court and who fills the arena. The Spurs are San Antonio. The love, the celebration, the community gathering, the camaraderie, the goodwill, the spirit that we all have when we gather around a TV or at a restaurant or anywhere else and watch our beloved Spurs play is something that we should never, ever take for granted. And giving them a nice new home downtown, if done right, is something I believe the team deserves and is something, again, that will be great for our city. So I'm strongly in favor of staff moving forward and exploring whether or not this project is viable, but I want to be really, really clear about something today. We cannot, we should not have the cost of this project fall on the backs of the citizens of San Antonio. I am extremely optimistic that at the turn of the year, our economy is about to take off. But it's no secret the economy hasn't been great now for some time. Property taxes have remained high. CPS energy rates have been raised on our citizens twice in the past 3 years, and people are tired of being asked to pay more. And as great and as exciting as this project is, we should not ask our citizens to once again pay more in order to obtain it. So again, I'm excited. This project can do so much for our city. The revenue created by something like this, if successful, can lift up everybody in San Antonio. It can allow us to do all of the things that we talk about every day. in terms of housing, doing more for our homeless population. Everything we want to do can be aided by a successful project here. I look forward to seeing this become a reality in a fiscally responsible manner, in a way that will lift everybody up in San Antonio, and in a way where all four corners and the center of our city will benefit. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember White. Councilmember Viagran.
Thank you, Mayor. And I agree with Councilman White that we need to get the San Antonio Spurs back downtown where they belong. 5 championships under the great coach Popovich, and of course we're praying for him daily, this entire community. So I'm really hopeful about what we're hearing today. Lori, I definitely want you to move forward, look at MOUs. I'm not going to tell the county whether or not they can raise taxes or not, but I think you have some really good, in terms, I want to talk about potential funding sources. The hotel occupancy tax, I'd like to see what that would increase. Parking revenue, I think if we can get the parking garages with the right technology, we can see our parking revenue go up, and I'm always saying that about our parking lots, especially the ones downtown. The Public Improvement District and the Project Finance Zone, I'd like to see us move forward with that, with potential funding. Consultants, I think we're going to need to spend a lot of money on consultants in terms of traffic pattern and infrastructure, and look at bringing people from different areas and different parts of the world to come in and see how we manage that, because we had Billy Joel Sting, Dia de los Muertos, all this weekend, that one weekend, and it's going to be hectic. But the one things that I didn't hear that I would like to hear as we move forward and as you take this out to the community is housing for the workers, public safety, and ensuring that both the arena and the areas around are going to have the public safety that they need in terms of fire and police. You did talk about infrastructure, and as we move forward as a council, we need to make sure that that's equitable among the districts. Climate change, the cost of keeping some of those older buildings in some of it, we really need to get hard numbers on that, because as much as the covenants are there, some of those, that could become a financial burden on the city that I really want us to look into as we move forward. I think as we take this out to the public, I'm really looking forward to hear from them. But I will tell you, it is so much. And if I had to pick 2, it would be the arena and the East Side Connector would be my priorities as we move forward. So that is definitely the things that I think as we talk to and I think you're going to hear that from the community also. So I love the 1 to 5 years plan, but I think what doesn't ever move from that 1 to 5 years plan is the arena and the East Side Connector. A lot of great ideas that I've heard from my council colleagues. Really excited to move this forward, because you guys are all here to hear the plan. That's why I'm not going to take 7 more minutes to talk. And so these are my suggestions in terms of moving forward, and I look forward to having more discussions and for you taking this out to the community and getting their impact. And they are going to ask for a lot, and they're going to ask for a 6th championship too. So be prepared for that first. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Viagran. Councilmember McKee Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the presentation. You look great. What I want to say first is, I wish that when the Frost Bank Center and the Alamo Dome were first dropped into the east side, that this same thoughtful planning went into it. This obviously took a lot of effort and time and planning, but it demonstrates in another way that areas like the east, west, and south side are afterthoughts to the planning efforts and the investment that happens downtown and on the north side. And I'm happy that in this instance there's some emphasis on the east side, but I believe that only happened because the Alamo Dome and Frost Bank Center are in District 2, and so it's happenstance, right? Perhaps the only reason I'll express cautious optimism is that there's an opportunity here to undo wrongs of the past that my constituents have desired for longer than I've been alive. I was speaking with Representative Gervin Hawkins before we got started. I know she's incredibly excited. I shared that I'm balancing a lot of complex reactions and emotions to this presentation. So what I will convey today is a bit of that conflict. What most conflicts me is the fact that the next steps and whatever happens as a result of today's conversation will have a distinct and tremendous impact on my district. So I'll start with what excites me most. Y'all know that highways and train tracks have been used historically as tools of segregation and redlining, and ours segregate our historically black neighborhoods and businesses from downtown and the rest of the city. You go from seeing a beautiful, vibrant convention center and immediately are drawn to a dark underpass that screams, "Do not cross, do not go here." And there's a huge need to connect areas like St. Paul Square and neighborhoods like Dignity Hill and Denver Heights to downtown. And so the idea of a land bridge is incredibly exciting, and I think with it comes a robust multimodal transportation plan that includes bike lanes and tree canopy. So I'm excited for the opportunity of the Eastside Connector that's a part of this plan. The caveat is the purpose of a land bridge has to be community-centric. And I expect that there is extensive outreach to determine not just the design, but the intended impact of the bridge. Dignity Hill and Denver Heights are also just very sensitive areas to gentrification and rapid change. And with big changes like this, there is so much opportunity for things to go wrong. And I know that a land bridge may not be the final answer, but I am thrilled that we have an opportunity to undo the damage that the highway has brought. And I think that's extremely significant. Regarding the convention center, the hotel, the entertainment venue, and whatnot, I expect that care and diligence is followed. Those aren't huge priorities or concerns necessarily for me at the moment. But I'll move on to the Alamo Dome, which is also in my district. And I've expressed to y'all my dismay that the Alamo Dome has been named one of the ugliest buildings in America. And while I maintain that there are uglier buildings, that doesn't change the fact that it does need a facelift. And how that happens, I'm unsure, but I'll follow it closely, and I expect that my community is heavily involved because, again, it does abut my neighbors. I'll move on lastly to the proposed Spurs Arena. I was 4 years old when voters approved the plan for the Frost Bank Center, and still I am held accountable for the promises that have never been fulfilled as a result of its development. To this day, my constituents want to see new amenities. We want to see increased tourism that will support existing small businesses on the east side and to even offer opportunities to expand those businesses. We want to spend our money in our community, but we're left behind in nearly every opportunity for this type of investment. And what I believe we have here is an opportunity to be intentional in the fulfillment of those promises made all those years ago, and I think this may be the only opportunity that we have for that. So I've conveyed to city staff and I've conveyed to the Spurs, how you leave a community is more important than how you found it. And if and when the Spurs leave the Frost Bank Center, they need to leave my community in a much better position than we're in today. The Frost Bank Center right now is a sea of parking lots, and on game and event days, visitors are immediately drawn away from the east side while blocking existing residents from getting access to anywhere in the surrounding area. And I know that the rodeo has expressed interest in operating 365 days of the year. I want to convey here publicly that that is not going to be the answer, and that is not the solution to the need for investment and the promises that have still been fulfilled. That is not the promise that was made, was a 24/7 rodeo. So right now you have a cautious ally. I will not be that unless the same thought and care that went into this broader plan happens for my community as well in the surrounding area. That same diligence and work that was done to put together this plan, I expect that to take place in the area surrounding the Frost Bank Center. That means that we determine a plan for the sea of parking lots, the Freeman Coliseum, the Coca-Cola plant, the golf course. I want to see a master plan. I want Coca-Cola brought in as a stakeholder, and I'd like to offer them an incentive to relocate so that we can utilize that land that they occupy. We need to be very strategic about the future of our city, and it's going to take a lot of intergovernmental coordination, which has not necessarily been anyone's strong suit. And it's also going to take a lot of trust building and work throughout the community, again, which has not been necessarily been a strong suit. All that said, just a couple months ago, we were discussing a deficit. We were discussing services that need expansion, but we're not going to be able to provide it, that our constituents rely on. And we held off on some of the major needs of our community. And we had to balance, again, our public safety goals, specifically in getting resources to our firefighters. And we were talking about what of the things that we need do we need to cut? And the community is looking at us right now, and it's asking itself, what happened to that deficit? My street is at the end of a 5-year list, if it's even on it, and some of this is somehow going to happen before that. And really what I hear is a question of priority. So I would say my direction is to go ahead and explore next steps, but I don't think it will be wise to ask voters for money when we're experiencing a deficit. People will conflate the city's budget with a tax, no matter who is putting it on the ballot. So the warning also goes to the county. I'd say as much private investment needs to go into this as possible. We're talking about, billions of dollars stacked against thousands of residents who are experiencing poverty. And so again, the question of priority is one that we're going to have to answer to them. There's a delicate balance that needs to be met. So I'm reserving my support for now, and it will take a lot of effort to get it, starting with a new master plan for the existing arena and the surrounding community. But I'm optimistic that we have an opportunity here to provide justice to communities that have been wronged. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember McKee Rodriguez. Councilmember Kaur.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with Councilman Rocha Garcia's comments that Project Marvel was a really good name for this. I'm a huge Marvel geek, and one thing that you do learn is that with this superhero power, you have great potential, but placed in the wrong hands, used the wrong way, it can really be disastrous. So I think it's a good way for us to make sure that we're doing this project, but doing it in the right way. So obviously this is a huge opportunity for downtown and Hemisphere. Hemisphere is already the most trafficked park, and it's actually the most traffic from residents from all of our districts. Oftentimes people will come up to me and say, oh yeah, you get to represent downtown, but I think what you hear from the dais today is we all represent downtown, we all care about it, and I think that's so awesome to be able to share that with all of my colleagues. I know that I was at a meeting yesterday with this University Roundtable group, and one of the women asked me, how are you bringing people back downtown? We are in a new state post-COVID, right? Some of our offices are relocating. We have a new community that we need to build. And one of the ways that we need to revitalize downtown is by bringing our local residents back and creating more plaza-like spaces that will help them come back and enjoy the whole day there. I understand that there is this idea that the Spurs games are a little bit expensive at times, but people still love going to them. One of my friends who's in the service industry yesterday told me she and her girlfriend went to the Thunder game on Tuesday night and had an amazing time. And they were sitting in the 400s, but they still went and were able to enjoy the camaraderie of the Spurs that everyone really in our community enjoys. So that being said, what are the things that could go wrong? And so I want to make sure we highlight this. The first is housing. What we've realized in the last few months, what I have specifically realized a lot, is we do not have enough efficiency housing that's affordable downtown. The mayor and I were a few weeks ago at the opening of 100 Labor, which is the apartment complex right across Hemisphere, and it was beautiful. We got to hear from the residents there, and it's affordable housing complex that's going to be within walking distance of this. But one complex is not going to be sufficient for the amount of housing needs we have downtown. And so it's incumbent upon us that we make sure we're going out and procuring this land before development occurs, and we can't actually manage what kind of affordability goes on it. And so I think it's really important that we not miss the mark on affordable housing downtown as we move forward with a lot of economic development and growth. The second thing is that I wanted to share is that, and Councilwoman mentioned this too, Eric and I went to go see a development that occurred in Atlanta, and what we noticed was a lot of the businesses and food establishments there were all national chains. No one wants to go to Applebee's ownership, but no one wants to go to an Applebee's at downtown at Hemisphere, right? We have some businesses that have made Hemisphere to this point. So one, we have to protect them. We have to make sure that they have endured all this construction and more construction to come. So we have to make sure we eliminate barriers for them so that they're able to stay, but also ensure that when we do have these RFPs that go out that for development to come in, that they make a commitment, just like our airport made this morning, to local chefs, to local owners, business owners, so that they can reap the benefits of the economic development as well. And the third thing that my neighborhoods would be completely sad if I did not mention, but can we bring up slide 22? This is, and Councilwoman Villagrán mentioned this is the absolute most important thing that we cannot get wrong, and it's the infrastructure component. if we do not invest in the public transportation right around there and make sure that VIA has got what they need to actually get people to games, if we don't invest in micro-mobility that we always talk about in this area, what's going to end up happening is our neighborhoods that have made this area so great, Lavaca and King William, are going to face a lot of the traffic challenges. So we have to make sure we get this infrastructure right. And we have to make sure when we are building this infrastructure that we're doing it in a way that's expedient and minimalistic in terms of disadvantage to the people that are there. So in terms of next steps and feedback, Laura, you mentioned the Alamo Dome and Bad Bunny. I absolutely think we need to have investment into the Alamo Dome because, yes, Bad Bunny came once, but on his second tour, he chose not to stop here. And so it's important that we make sure we reinvest in that area to one, bring that up. And I don't think Councilmember McKee Rodriguez could have said it any more perfect in all of his comments. I thought he was very thoughtful about what he said, and that the land bridge is really important to create that connection, but it has to be community-centered, so that if families can't afford to go to the Spurs game, what are the opportunities in and around where they can still experience it at a low cost while using public transportation to get there, maybe bringing their own food and snacks and still being able to be a part of the community, even if they're not getting a ticket to go into the game. And then the second thing is creating an innovative funding plan. I think you've heard a lot from our colleagues about what our constituents feel about paying a tax for going to a game or coming downtown to an event that tourists are really attending. So it's important that we come up with an innovative funding plan, whether that means extending the PID, thinking about what our TERS are doing, whatever, and increasing private investment into this area, because economic development spurs more development, right? So let's think really innovatively and creatively about how we are funding this, and then find great words to explain and make sure that we are really being clear about what that looks like. And then the last thing, and this is the most important thing in my opinion, is real community engagement. So that doesn't mean just going to the neighborhood associations and giving them a presentation. That means thinking with CNE about what does it look like to get the amount of people that responded to our horse carriage survey to respond to this and provide thoughtful feedback. What would they like to see? What would that community benefits agreement look like? What are the things that would make sure they feel like this was built for them and not for the people in this room, who I'm so grateful to see all of y'all's faces. We would love to see this every Thursday during a session, but that's who we are really doing this for. So we have to make sure that they are the center point and the focal point of this work. Thank you, Lori and the team, for your presentation and for putting all of this together. And again, thank you to all the partners that are here. And thank you to my council colleagues for all of your thoughtful comments and words to support. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Corr. Councilmember Castillo.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Lori, for the presentation. As a historian, urban historian, I'd be remiss if I didn't ground us in San Antonio's history of urban renewal, the raising of neighborhoods for the construction of Hemisphere Park, as my colleague cited, right, the highways that have ran through our communities that were established, displacing folks all throughout the city. And that's the story of many of my constituents, right? Folks who have been displaced time after time in the name of progress and urban renewal are now on the border of D5, feeling those economic pressure of increased property taxes, increased utilities. And with that, right, I share the same sentiment as my colleague that I believe that no San Antonio taxpayer should bear the brunt of the construction of a new sports arena. I think, as my colleague has mentioned, I think what's important is that there is a robust community benefits agreement that is established. And what I would caution is do not do what was done with the Missions Baseball Stadium. That's an example of what not to do. But there's opportunity to learn, to engage community, and establish a legally binding community benefits agreement. And there's a couple of examples that have been established with the Nashville Soccer Stadium, the Milwaukee's Bucks Arena, the Staples Center, and then the City of Atlanta, in partnership with the sports team ownership, established a legally binding community benefits agreement. And I think that's something that we should research and see how we can move forward with implementing similar. Now, this plan, again, I would like to see that while we're working towards the framework, that it includes local Unite Here 23, the union that represents hospitality workers and hotel workers, because there is a huge focus, whether it's UTSA School of Hospitality, the construction of a new hotel. This is something that impacts folks that live all throughout the city. There's many hospitality workers that live in District 5, and I want to ensure that their take is being implemented into whatever robust plan that comes about within this framework. I think in terms of finance, when we talk about the public infrastructure improvements, how much are we anticipating to cover for infrastructure in this proposed plan?
We can't answer that question right now. That's why we're still doing the feasibility. And we are working constantly with our partners at CPS, at SAWS, of course, VIA in the city to help us identify what those pieces of infrastructure are and what the costs are. We have a feasibility study that we're presenting to council once it's available, and then once we have that study, then we can develop those cost estimates.
Thank you, and I share similar concerns, right, on priorities with infrastructure. I know there are things that are very much needed, but when I have Ms. Hernandez calling our office about an apron and or approach, and I have to relay with her that that's her responsibility, or Mr. Hernandez with his alleyway maintenance, and if it abuts his property, that he's responsible for that maintenance, I'm just concerned as well, right, with the perception that we're prioritizing infrastructure for new development when we have San Antonio residents who have been waiting 5-10 years for basic infrastructure like streets and sidewalks. So I look forward to us receiving that plan on what that infrastructure may look like. And in terms of the county's participation in the construction of a new arena, can you share a little bit about what that process would be like? My understanding is that they would have to send it out to a vote to Bexar County voters to participate in the stadium.
I'm going to kick it over to Eric on that one.
Yeah, I'll take that one, Councilman. So I think they've done it twice before. The county has the availability to call for a vote of venue tax, and the venue tax is made up of two revenue sources. It's an increment on the hotel occupancy tax, and it's an additional tax on car rentals out at the airport. And so that would be a mechanism that the county has. Again, it goes back to the last slide where we're recommending we develop a framework MOU with the county and the Spurs to bring everybody to the table. I mean, I don't want to speak for the county. They're an obvious partner, but we'd need to have those conversations with them.
And I know we can't speak for the county, but are we anticipating, or if someone from the Spurs team can answer, are we anticipating that the county would look to the venue tax? And I ask the question, right, because if they do, my point is that it would go out to voters. There would be a democratic process for the public to give input on the stadium.
If the county chose to do that, you're correct. That can only get done by a vote of the county voters.
And at what point in the process, I know this was going to be coming back for a December briefing, will we have the capital stack and what the county intends to contribute?
Well, I think based on today's conversation, we'll certainly start engaging the county on this MOU. The December presentation will be specific to the convention center. Any updates that we have on that front, we can include in the presentation to you at that point.
And then in terms of a community benefits agreement and with the entire framework, what my expectations are is that we use union construction to help facilitate and materialize the vision that stakeholders and council approve of, as well as the county, ensuring that there is a livable wage consistent with the city of San Antonio's wage that goes up. I think what we've run into with the Hyatt, for example, is that was a fixed rate, so their minimum wage is with the city's wage of that time and has not gone up with inflation or with the city's minimum wage. So I want to ensure that we avoid that with any new hotel that takes place that's city funded. And then I also want to ensure, to the councilwoman's point, that we do implement the housing trust. I think a lot of the sentiment and concern that I hear from community is just the domino that we've already seen fall with Soapworks Factory and the pressure that that's putting on the whole San Antonio housing ecosystem. And how can we get ahead of that by ensuring that the construction of new housing is deeply affordable, does accept vouchers, and is accessible to hospitality workers. And I know that's a concern that I hear, that I heard today in the crowd, and I just want to ensure that as we move forward, we are righting some of our wrongs through a community benefits agreement, ensuring that we are not replicating history that has displaced community members and the folks that helped build the city of San Antonio. You know, while the east side of Hemisphere, right, a comment was made that they need reinvestment. I've had conversations with folks on Mesquite Street and Hackberry that are barely holding on to their homes. So we need to ensure with the CBA that we're engaging folks that have lived in the community for decades, if not generations, so that way we can ensure that there's some type of plan in place. Again, citing the city of Atlanta, they have created a tax fund in which they help save off the increase of property taxes around their sports stadium, and it is a public-private partnership, so I think there's models that we can look to replicate to ensure that we minimize as much impact and risk for the established communities. So those are my comments and my expectations. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Castillo, Councilmember Courage.
Thank you, Mayor. In listening to everyone else's comments and thoughts about this, you know, things come to mind as I'm near the end of the list sometimes. And I have to say that I recognize, I think all of us do, many of us do, that great cities have great downtowns. And we can think of all of the great cities in this country and what downtown is like for those cities and what it means to the community. And I really liked the presentation today. That concept is great. I wish I could wave a magic wand and put it in place tomorrow so that we could all enjoy what that will offer or may offer in the future. But I don't think anyone can tell what the future will hold for us. Certainly no one knew about the pandemic, and nobody knew about Winter Storm Uri, and no one knows whatever else may come down the line. So, you know, there's a lot of what we have to consider as we think about this. One of the important things that I've been talking about, I've heard about from people who know what goes on in our community over the years, and that is that growth should pay for growth. So if we're going to grow a new arena, if we're going to grow a new hotel, if we're going to grow new businesses in this area, then that should be paid for by the people who are growing these things. We're not talking about the San Antonio taxpayers. We're talking about the developers or the hotel owners or the people who own the sports franchise, etc. You know, we've heard, or I've heard comments that this could be a $3 to $4 billion effort over 15 years. And I also heard us talk about, Lori mentioned that the estimate is that over the last 5 years, we have lost about $750 million in tourist money coming to San Antonio because our convention center isn't big enough, or we don't have enough hotel rooms, or because the Alamo Dome need updates. Well, when I was doing a little bit figuring, that's $250 million a year over 5 years, lost opportunity money. But a lot of that, if we were to have those people come in and spend that money, you know, a lot of that is just a hotel tax that's restricted and doesn't go to the general fund. It just continues to support, you know, the Alamo Dome and the convention center. A lot of that money would just go to businesses that are open, that are providing a service or providing products. Now that helps pay for jobs, but it doesn't give any money to the general fund other than sales tax. But, you know, if we talk about $750 million or $250 million a year for 5 years, probably a lot of that goes to hotels, it goes to the businesses. How much does the city get in return, let's say, in sales tax? Well, you know, we probably get, if it's $150 million a year, $250 million a year, we get 4 or 5% of that returned to us. So, you know, what we get is what? $8, $10 million? $15 million a year added to our general fund? We don't get $750 million a year added to our general fund for us to go ahead and do things for the people in this community. Now, that's the past, and we're looking forward to the future, and hopefully the return will even be greater. But I want to know, before I vote in support of these, how will this development improve the lives of nearly 250,000 San Antonians who are living at or below the poverty line? Does $10 million a year, $15 million a year in additional sales tax, or $20 million a year in additional sales tax resolve that? How will whatever the city gets out of this in revenue, how will this change homelessness? We're already seeing the community spend $75 million a year fighting homelessness when you talk about the city, the county, all the nonprofits, federal money, state money. How will this project and any revenue to the city increase affordable housing in our city, which it's a crisis for a lot of people? You know, how will this provide more better paying jobs to San Antonio residents? People who will work in hotels, and they work in restaurants, and they will work in concessions in the arena and, you know, the Alamo Dome and at the convention center. But what about more better paying jobs? And how many families with income levels of, let's say, $40,000 to $60,000, certainly not poverty level, but how many of them will be able to afford to go to the hotels that get built, the restaurants that will be built, the concerts that will be held, the Spurs games that will be held? How many will be able to go there compared to today and comparing it to 5 or 10 years from now? And, you know, what's the anticipated or hoped for financial return to the city, and how can we commit that revenue to the benefit of residents in the future? I need to see some numbers about that, and not just, oh, we're going to get an extra $250 million a year in tourist money, and what does that really equate to money to the city of San Antonio, and what will that enable us to do for the people who live in this city? So we need to really break this down into real numbers and not just say, well, it's going to cost us $3 or $4 billion, but it's going to be the growth that pays for it, not the city. But when it comes to infrastructure, as we've heard, when it comes to streets and roads and overpasses and other things that are part of this program that aren't going to be paid for by private dollars but are going to be paid for by city dollars, you know, what's going to be the cost of all that, and what's going to be the return to the city that we can use to help better the lives of the people in San Antonio? I love the Spurs. I think all of our wants and needs and desires in this plan are good, but I want to see how is it going to benefit the rest of the city over the long run in some real proposed numbers, so that we can balance the decision and the dream with the reality of what we need to do in our community. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Courage. Any further discussion on the presentation today? Councilmember Plies.
Very, very briefly, I also think, and if Alex Lopez and Brenda Hicks Sorensen are here, maybe they're not, I do think that we need to explore creating a simultaneous and parallel economic development push to attract, you know, more employment, more companies downtown. We need to also include Velocity. I see Renee Dominguez back there. We need to include Velocity in that conversation. We can't just be talking about this one district, Lori. I mean, there's some really important assets that we can conceptually include in the conversation as we're moving forward. And Jenna and Sarah Karabias-Rush need to be involved in that conversation as well. So if you guys can help me figure that out, I'd really appreciate it. Those are my only comments. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Plies. Anything further? Well, just sitting back and listening to the conversation, Eric, I think everyone who sees the images and understands the comprehensive nature of this vision is probably struck by the enormity of it and the transformational capacity of it. That's not lost on anybody. This is a city of big dreams. There's no doubt about that. What separates us in this day and age right now, given all of the big things that this city and the city council, this community has been able to accomplish, is that we are willing together to work towards it and execute. There's so many things that we could put on the list. The one that's coming to mind since it was on the agenda today is the airport, but it's an example of no longer settling for just having an aspiration, but using our talents, our capacities, our resources together as a community to achieve a bold vision for the future. We have every cultural and community asset in the world to leverage. One of the unique cities in America, we know that. A city that has enjoyed the benefit of heritage and culture that is unmatched in the world. And what I'm hearing today is that there is a sense of urgency to do right by our community, to achieve that vision in the right way, but also willingness to go out and take the first steps. So Eric, as far as I'm concerned, the message from my colleagues today is we got a lot of work to do, but let's get to work. Eric?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I was looking at the words that I said at the beginning of the intro, that there is a lot of work to do, but I wanted to thank the council because I thought this was a good, solid conversation in terms of the things that are priorities to you. One of the things that we have done as we've gone through the planning effort is look at what's worked in other cities and what hasn't. And I appreciate the examples. We're going to have to be thoughtful, and I think today's launch and the engagement, we certainly will think through how we involve all your offices in that engagement, and it is too big for us not to get right. We're committed to it. We have huge partnerships, some of them in the room, and we're going to rely upon them, and we're going to start following up on the things that you shared with us today. And I wanted to thank the council for that conversation because I think it's helpful for us to make sure that we're on the right railroad track. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Eric. And we'll just close with the fact that a lot of people didn't believe that the San Antonio Spurs could be the gold standard of sports franchises in the world, but look at what they've been able to accomplish, and I think our city can do the same thing. So thank you all for being here. Great presentation, Lori. All right, we're going to need to take a brief 5-minute recess in order to recall our A session agenda back from recess. So at 12:36 p.m. on the 21st day of November 2024, our special session is adjourned, and we'll be back in 5 minutes. All right, I'm for my colleagues who are within earshot, if you can please come back to the dais. For everyone else in the chamber, if you can start to dampen your conversations. We're going to try to get through our A session agenda now because we've got folks who have travel agendas. So if my colleagues can come back to the dais, we're going to go ahead and start our A session agenda. All right. Thank you, everyone. The time is 12:45 p.m. on November 21st, 2024. If anybody's counting, this is meeting 7 of 8 or 9 for the council in the last 72 hours, so thank you for your endurance. We'll call our A session back to order. And so why don't we go ahead and do a roll, Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Corr. Present. Councilmember Mickey Rodriguez.
Present.
Councilmember Villagran.
Here.
Councilmember Rocha Garcia.
Here.
Councilmember Castillo.
Here.
Councilmember Cabello Havrda. Councilmember Alderete Gavito. Councilmember Pelaez. Councilmember Courage.
Present.
Councilmember White. Mayor Nierenberg.
Here.
Mayor, we have quorum.
All right. If there's no objections, I'm going to take up items 41 through 43 because we do have guests who need to depart. And so if we can bring up those items, I believe you've already read those captions. Item 41 through 43, and I'll just turn the floor to Councilmember Mickey Rodriguez.
Thank you. I'll start with the motion, and I will have some comments. But as I promised to my neighbors, I would like to convey the spirit of sadness and lost hope that they have expressed as I make this motion to approve these nasty little items.
All right. Could you repeat that, Councilmember?
Move to approve.
Second.
All right. There's a motion and a second for approval of items 41 through 43. Andy, we're good there? Okay.
Yes, Mayor.
Will we need to vote separately, or can we vote once?
You would have to vote separately, Mayor.
Okay. All right. There is a motion and a second for items 41 through 43. Is there any discussion?
Jalen.
Councilmember Mickey Rodriguez.
Thank you. So last night I had a meeting with more than 20 residents of the Paloma neighborhood in my district. It was the third meeting we've had in the last few weeks to try to make a very difficult decision. Much of the meeting was coming to terms with the fact that a budding neighborhood with a lot of promise is now placed in the position that much of my district is in. They will exist in a food desert. They will not have access to the retail, restaurants, or many other amenities that make neighborhoods feel like home. Their neighborhood will become an industrial hub. They will experience the traffic congestion and inconvenience that 18-wheelers bring to communities. But our options were an 18-wheeler dealership that abuts roughly 50 households starting at their fence line, or storage for 18-wheelers on the same property. As we've seen throughout my district, developers do not want to build any of these amenities that I mentioned earlier in areas that are now industrial. And while I respect that some of my colleagues appreciate new jobs as a priority in their decision making, there is absolutely no shortage of these types of jobs in my district. My residents, have to leave the district in order to access their everyday needs. So in my decision making, their needs take priority. Every action that I take is to be the best possible representative of my constituents as possible, and that means making difficult decisions. So the meeting last night ended with an agreement that the dealership would be better than the parking and storage of 18-wheelers. It was not unanimous, but it was a significant majority, and there was no excitement. It was very somber. And since this case started nearly a year and a half ago, my number one priority has been to, again, represent my constituents to the best of my ability and to achieve the best end result possible with this case. We worked with the residents to get as much out of the dealership as possible, and earlier this year, as I was ready to deny the case, it was withdrawn. It was then revived and stalled for several months, and over the past several weeks, we've built a significant amount of trust with my residents, and I appreciate their willingness to allow me to negotiate on their behalf. Doggett has agreed to not allow 18-wheelers on Wycold Road. They've agreed to increase the buffers from 15 feet on the southeast and southwest property lines to 50 feet and 25 feet each. That's a huge change. They've agreed to build a 10-foot masonry fence pending Board of Adjustment approval to replace the wooden fences of the property owners. And we're authorizing a minimum of 8 feet today. This will be the first thing built as to prevent any pests disrupted during the construction period from getting into those neighboring properties. They will limit operating hours to 7 to 8 Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 on Saturday, and they'll be closed on Sundays. The building will be at least 200 feet away from abutting residents. They've agreed to keep the trees along the property line and to increase the tree canopy within the buffer zone by 50%. There will be no liquid fuel storage allowed on the site. When hiring new employees, they will prioritize individuals that live in the Paloma neighborhood who apply, and will offer summer internships to those looking to build a career as a technician with priority for Paloma residents. Doggett will also contribute $50,000 for improvements to park space in the Paloma neighborhood. Lastly, by annexing the property, we will have an opportunity to hold them accountable in ways that we would not if they remained outside of city limits. I've provided a signed copy of this agreement to our city clerk for the record. And I'll end by saying that every step taken up to now has been necessary to get to this point today, in building trust, in building negotiating power, and in getting as fine a deal as possible. I do need a supermajority to pass this item, and so a vote in favor today will help me prevent the parking lot that my constituents have decided is the greater terror. I'd also like if you wouldn't mind coming up, I would like a commitment from Ken today that you'll continue to work with me to identify ways to continue building trust and goodwill with my constituents in the Paloma neighborhood.
Yes, we've been working obviously very closely for the last 3 weeks, and this isn't the end of it. We have a lot of permitting and site, things to do, but it won't be constructed for like 18 months, and so I think we still have time to work together to address any further concerns.
Thank you. And you will be submitting an amended site plan that reflects these changes?
Yeah, that will reflect the buffers and the fence and the things that you named, yeah.
Thank you. That being said, I ask for my colleagues' support today.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember McKee Rodriguez. Further discussion on items 41 through 43. Councilmember White.
Just a quick point of clarification. The fence, is it you said masonry?
Yes.
So a wall?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember White. Any further discussion? Councilmember Courage.
Yeah. Last time we talked about this, and I know there were several times to talk about this, I said, and I always have been, a neighborhood kind of guy. And I understand that people in the neighborhood nearby are concerned. I think people, when they buy into neighborhoods with a lot of undeveloped land around them, need to recognize the fact that also the person next door on the other side of that fence line is a property owner and has property rights as well. I appreciate the fact that the councilman took the additional time to work with the community and the developer to come up with something that is going to benefit both sides as much as can be determined. So I'll be voting to support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Courage. Any further discussion on items 41 through 43? Okay, hearing none, we'll take these in order. So there's a motion and a second for item 41. Please vote. Motion carries. Item 42, motion and a second. No further discussion. Yeah. We have the motions and the seconds already. Okay. Item 42, please vote. Motion carries. Item 43. Please vote. Motion carries. All right. We have a couple more items left from our A session agenda, so we will go back to item number 22.
Item number 22 is a resolution declaring overdoses a public health crisis.
All right. Who pulled this? Who pulled it? Oh. Okay. This was pulled by Councilmember Castillo. Councilmember.
Thank you, Mayor. I pulled item 22 because it's a really important item. Item 22 is a resolution declaring overdoses as a public health crisis. Last June, my office filed a policy to reduce deaths and other community harms caused by opioid addiction and stimulants, including declaring overdoses as a public health crisis. With this resolution, the local fight against opioid and stimulant overdoses is the strongest that it has ever been. Drug overdoses are the leading cause of accidental death in the United States, with opioids being a major contributor along with stimulants. This crisis is impacting our local communities and destroying families. From 2018 to 2023, the United States saw a 57% increase in drug-related deaths, including 5,688 lives lost in Texas and 469 lost in Bexar County. This crisis is claiming the lives at an alarming rate, over 2,000 deaths each week nationwide. This resolution calls for a unified community approach to addressing overdose deaths, including support for prevention, harm reduction treatment, and recovery programs. With billions in opioid settlement funds allocated to the state and local governments, there is an opportunity to invest in more resources and initiatives to combat this crisis, and that is exactly what the City Council and the county is doing. This resolution recognizes overdose deaths as preventable tragedies that impact all of us. And I would be remiss if I didn't share that throughout this process of the CCR moving through the process, I lost a family friend. We called him Chano Mejia, who unfortunately lost his life through an overdose. So this is extremely personal, near and dear to not just me, but so many residents throughout the city of San Antonio. And that's why we continue to stand in solidarity with those affected by substance use and commit to supporting solutions that reduce harm and provide care and save lives. But I want to be sure that I thank some of our partners that have helped lead this initiative before the CCR was filed, which includes UT Health, Be Well Texas, Albert Campbell, a D5 resident who's always connecting folks to resources, and of course, Pastor Robinson. But with that, I move to approve item 22.
Okay, there was a motion. Was there a second? All right, there's a motion and a second for approval of item 22. I do want to, I know there's some folks signed up to speak on this item, so I'll call you in just a moment. I do want to give an opportunity, though, to our team at Metro Health to come forward if they'd like to make some comments about the resolution, and then we'll get to the action.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate you, Councilwoman Castillo, for bringing this and for spurring on our community and leading us in this way. It's very important that we recognize that all overdoses, not just those caused by opioids, are a public health crisis. There's some data for you that we can share